Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Author's Quill. I hope everyone's having a good day wherever you are on our planet. I know, people always ask me, does people listen to your show? Does my English is shot. Does other people listen to the show around the world? And actually, they do. I think this show currently has about 120 countries that listen to it. So, well, I hope they all speak English. But anyway, I'm sure they can translate it. There's lots of translators these days. There are the new universal translators that anyone can buy and use. And it translates I think it's 86 different dialects now. So go out there, give it a try, people, if you don't understand what we're saying. But there are other translators that are specific.
Do they do Bayou? I don't know if they do Bayou.
No, they do Couillon ones, what they do. But anyway, we're going to get into that. That's probably not what we need to use on the air today. But anyway, guys. But you can find us in a lot of different countries. And it's great to be able to know that we're around the world. And of course, we're in almost all the English-speaking countries all over Europe. But it's fun because I know we're in China. I know we're in Russia. Matter of fact, I did a 2-hour interview for Pravda the other night on another subject I talk about, which we're doing part 2 of tomorrow, because really the first one's audio was kind of glitchy. So if you live in Russia or Moscow, because that's where it's broadcast out of, the particular thing, the reporter's out of Moscow, you can tune in and listen. They're going to let me know what day it's going to air there, which really, it doesn't mean anything here, but still, it was just really weird to be asked when Russia's in the middle of a war to be on their TV station. It's kind of surreal, actually. But I have John Goodwin with me here tonight. Sorry, guys, my throat is scratchy. No free advertisement for Coca-Cola. Nice to know. Now,
it's guaranteed to help your throat. No.
Yes, hey, it's not itchy anymore, so it's not hate. Coke is good for you people. It's good. It cleans out all your inside. Anyway, we're not kidding.
Yeah, it's good for cleaning your batteries, and it's good for cleaning.
It is good for cleaning your batteries. It's good for those things. It's also good for cleaning everything else in your body out. Anyway, we have Jack Nash with us this afternoon, and Jack's one of the winners from Writers of the Future.
From this one, exactly.
Yes, from this one.
Got my copy as well.
Oh, good. Yes.
So, yes, I got mine back here. This one's starting to look a little rough, man. Thank God this is my own personal copy. It's always back here. There's another one back there too. That's in good shape over there somewhere. Of course, there's Death with a Taxpayer over there as well. So, Nash, we'll just start right at. Wait, where are you from, actually, man? I wanted to ask you.
Yeah, well, originally I am from Richfield, Utah. It is a very small town right in the middle of the state, but I currently live in Arlington, Virginia.
I'm going to freaking move to Utah and start some kind of Arthur's Guild there. I mean, Jesus, I can't tell you how many, really, seriously, how many writers I have met from Utah, how many authors, and actually really good ones. I've been really surprised. I guess because it's all they got out there is pretty skies and you get lots of time to write. I mean, don't get me wrong, people. I'm not hating. Utah is a beautiful place. I've been out there several times.
They read a lot there.
Yes, obviously they read a lot.
At FanX, Salt Lake City, that's one of our best shows that we do because there's so many readers. And I've gone to BYU and to UVU and spoken to various classes there. In fact, that's when I originally got Brandon on board as a judge, Brandon Sanderson. I went as a guest speaker at his creative writing class. And there's just so many writers there. And that year, there was one of our winners was from that class. But I think per capita, there's more winners from Utah than any other state in the union.
Because there's probably more writers per capita in Utah than any other state in the union. It's no amazing doubt to me how many authors I meet from there. And like I said, good ones. And just recently I spent some time with a little bit more famous one, Arthur Scott Card. He is an interesting person to talk to.
Arthur Scott Card, yeah.
Yes, he's a very interesting. I enjoyed. I spoke to him twice. Once was on record, one was off, but he was very interesting. I just find that, I guess, open skies is a good place to write, to be a writer. Opens up the imagination. I guess you look up at the sky and say, Jesus, okay, anything is possible, man. So anyway, Jack, I digress. But so tell me a little bit about yourself. So what got you, what was it, what age were you when you really said, okay, I'm going to write and I'm going to do this more on a serious level than I am just because a lot of people just start out cutting around, kidding around, just writing things that make you laugh or try to scare people. But somewhere along the line, you have to get serious, especially if you're going to win Writers of the Future. So I'm kind of curious to where was that, or how did you get there?
Yeah, well, a lot of people tell you that they wanted to be a writer since they were a kid, and for me, that's only part true. I definitely had the desire to write. I loved books, but I didn't get really serious about it until just almost 4 years ago. Um, so I work as post grad school. I started a job at a small consulting firm where we were working with various governments and private companies. And one of my first jobs was to be a speechwriter for a former head of state of a small African country. And I had to pretend to be someone who was much different than myself. And I learned a lot, taking on someone's voice, taking on their perspectives, writing as if I was a different person. And after I got a little bit better at that, I said, you know what? I've always wanted to try fiction. There's no time like the present. And what will happen if I kind of shift focus? So that's when I really started to hammer down on learning how to write fiction. And I've gotten here and hope to keep going. Well, I will keep going. It's not hope.
Yeah, please.
Yes, I don't think there's going to be any nukes falling anytime soon. So, but I mean, what's your favorite genres to write in? I mean, what is it that really, really pulls you down, that really attracts you?
That's a great question. I'm pretty agnostic when it comes to genre. I can skip around a lot, and I enjoy a lot of different stuff. When I want comfort books, just when I need a break, sometimes I find myself going towards thrillers, but recently I've been on a little bit more of a classic sci-fi kick. So I just read Ursula Le Guin's The Left Hand of Darkness, which is a classic work from a few decades ago, but still really poignant, really well done. I don't like to really put things in genre boxes. I think if it's a good story, it's a good story. If it's saying something about humanity, you'll find it. So I'll read whatever's thrown in front of me, pretty much.
You sound like my wife. Give her a book, man. She'll read it. She's ridiculous. I'm not. When I met her, I was like, "Is this how our marriage going to be? You're just going to disappear for hours on end. Where'd you go, baby?" So I find her on the couch somewhere, and I think just reading away. And the bad part is, it wasn't like she'd read like just one book. Oh no, that wasn't enough for her.
She finds a series. There she goes.
Yeah, she goes. I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to go cook dinner or something. 2 hours or 4 hours, 5 hours later. I'm like, how you doing? Oh, I'm on my second book. I'm like, what? I'm thinking to myself, I couldn't even read it. I've been putting the first one down after 30 minutes. Okay, I'm going to find something to do. I'm bad about that. I actually admire people who can really seriously sit and read. When I was young, I could. But it was more because it was required. I was in private school, and we did a book report every week on a classic. So, and those, for some reason, I guess I identified better with or something. I don't know what it was, or maybe it was just I knew I was going to get a failing grade. But regardless, I did a lot of reading then. And then as I got older, my life got busier. So now, though, like with John sends me audiobooks, which makes my life really easy. I'll put it on my phone, or I'll put it on one of my computers. I can listen when I'm driving, or listen when I'm building on the website. So I really, truly enjoy it. So I always admire people who could actually just, because it looks to me like would be a grand thing to be able to sit and do. I'm not going to lie.
Well, I'm like you. I have a lot of trouble sitting still. I don't know if it's ADD or something, undiagnosed. I don't know, but I can only sit still for a few minutes before I start to feel like I need to be moving. So I do a lot of audiobooks because then I can cook,
Nice,
I can do other activities, I can multitask. So
in some ways, I think that's going to be a good chunk of the wave of the future. I didn't mean to cut you off there. Go ahead.
Oh, very good. Just audiobooks. Really enjoy them. There is something special and important about actually sitting down with a physical book. I think especially for writers, just to see how the words are on the page. I feel like I learn how to write a lot better from that, but sometimes I just got to do an audiobook to get through it.
Well, if they got a good, especially if there's a good, if the voice is really good, or they're adding in a little sound effects with it, it can really bring the book home for me. Because there's some, I've been fortunate to get some really good audiobooks with some really good, solid voices, and And like with Mission Earth, there's a lot of good solid voices, but there's a lot of good sound effects as well. Somewhere, where am I at? Like book 8.5 now or something, but it's going on a year I've been having this book. John,
Well,
good.
I was going to say in here, because you got your story there, Jack, Sun, Spirit, Snake. I think the narrator for your story was just, I mean, she was amazing. She did a lot of preps for it to really learn how to get the French accent for it on your stories and to get that. And she made sure she did your pronunciation key that you created for the story to be able to follow that. And she was just amazing. Sometimes, I mean, I like listening to audiobooks, but I sometimes have a problem because I have to read so much for the podcast that I do. And so I can read like 5 times faster than I can listen. So, but listening to her rendition of your story, it actually brought a lot more out in the story, because then you could really get the distinction of the ethnicity that you're actually writing into the story, which I wouldn't have otherwise gotten, because I was just looking at your science fiction fantasy, but that actually, it was a lot deeper than that, which she was able to bring out.
Yeah, no, Tamara did an amazing job. Just really I wouldn't have thought she didn't speak French listening to it. She really did a great job with the accents and the weird words. And it was actually a fun task when we were told there's going to be an audiobook recording. All the writers were asked to kind of explain how to pronounce things. And I had a lot. I actually had to make an Excel sheet just to keep track of all of them. But glad she found it useful. And totally agree. She did an amazing job.
Yeah. And Pedro did an amazing job with your artwork,
Mm-hmm.
You scored.
Yeah, no, I got some great co-creatives to really bring this to life. It's just been a surreal experience. It's been so much fun.
Who was this strange fellow Pedro? I'm just teasing, ladies and gentlemen. We just had him on just a couple of weeks ago.
Awesome.
If you want to know, y'all can go check it out. He's grown quite a lot.
Nascimento, yeah. I was surprised when we had him on the show. He was a lawyer.
Yeah, I didn't know that either. I was like,
he was a lawyer, and then all of a sudden, then I decided I just got tired of it, and so I wanted to be an artist, and that's what I really wanted to do. So I'm doing my art now.
Love that. Love Pedro.
I would have never thought he was a lawyer, man.
In the writers winners, our little group chats we have going on, his acceptance speech for his award was our favorite. It was just so funny. So if anyone can go find the award ceremony, fast forward to Pedro's, it's well worth it.
We're talking about one of the past winners, one of the last year's winners, but you can catch it. It's 3 weeks ago, John. I think the interview was.
Yeah, it was just a few weeks ago. Yeah.
Pedro
Nascimento. On the author's
it was he's a good energy interview. He's a lot of fun.
He came back because he was at a convention. It was like 11 o'clock at night for him. And so he came back from a comic convention there in Portugal. And then as soon as, so we're done. Okay, good. I'm going to go back to the convention now. So they went back, like at 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning to continue with the convention.
That's awesome.
He sounded like he was having a good time. He really did.
He definitely was.
But you got to take advantage of any fame you get like that. I mean, I tell people all the time when I'm doing lectures about that, and they're like, "Well, how do you know when to stop?" I said, "You don't stop until you have to do something new." I said, "You're only as good as your last item, people." I'm sorry. I said, "I don't make the rules. Trust me, I have to live by them like y'all do." I said, "But you're only as good as your last thing." And I said, "I get lucky every now and then and say something crazy, so it'll stay out there for a little while." But authors can live by that for a while. It's not a really good book. I've noticed can I don't want to use the word linger, but a really good book can just kind of hang out there in the presence for a while. People will pick it up. And I've also noticed sometimes, not for everybody, but sometimes a decade and a half, all of a sudden there's like a new upspringing of the book from another generation who's picked it up. Which is nice to see. I mean, it's nice to see what I like to call cross-generational books, because sometimes books only seem to appease or appeal to one or two generations, and some books seem to have the ability to cross all over. Well, the anthologies are easier for that because there's so many multiple stories in there. You can go through them, and I feel comfortable reading all of the stories, so I find it interesting to me. But still, it's one of them things. So
Yeah,
I mean,
one
so
thing too, like to your point there, and Jack, when you were at the workshop, we had everybody read. Was it To the Stars that you read?
Yeah. Yep. To
Yeah.
the
So To the
Stars.
Stars was written in 1950. We re-released it in early 2000s, and some of the pulp fiction stories and that type of storytelling is having like a renaissance. To your point there, Joe. It's especially, maybe it's because, and this is something that that what's the name? Come on, D. Musley Smith has been talking about too, because of the online surge of stories. You got this fast stories going out, and you don't have to do these long novels. You can do back then a novel was 40,000 words, so you can do those types of stories and publish them on internet. But that story was written in 1950. Then in the early 2000s, it came out again. It got a starred review from Publishers Weekly. It got an A- from Entertainment Weekly, the magazine. And it's just, some stories transcend time. And obviously I published Hubbard, so I'm very knowledgeable in that. But there's multiple authors who will transcend time and become an inspiration for other authors on writing styles and techniques. So you learn, like, you don't need to reinvent the wheel. It's just like a new take on several of similar tropes. So was there anything that you found, Jack, that any writing styles from authors in the past, from the golden age or from earlier periods, that were inspirational for you?
That's a really good question. It's hard to pinpoint exactly where some of my writing style comes from because
Hmm.
I I read so widely.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of where my style kind of comes from is when I started reading as a teenager, when you really get into books and you start thinking about, your brain's a little bit more developed and you can start thinking about those things a little bit more. I read a lot of Agatha Christie. I read a lot of Sherlock Holmes, a lot of classic detective fiction. And I think that kind of came through, even though it was a fantasy story. After the awards ceremony, we were sitting with Kevin J. Anderson, and he called my story a gritty, dark African something. And I think part of that's because I read a lot of noir, a lot of detection thrillers where the writing, the
Yeah.
sentences are a little bit shorter. It's not an exactly what style it is, but I think that definitely has influenced me. That
Yeah.
that era of writing and that genre in particular.
Good, because it makes sense that it would, if you're well read, and there was a definite, again, as Hubbard put it there, with when he was asked about, okay, so it was the golden age, he said golden age is what's been named after the fact. At that time, there was just a lot of creativity. People were just like, the doors that opened up, and because of pulp fiction, the pulp magazines, it was turned onto overdrive, and so people were coming
Mhm.
with new ideas. He was specifically brought in by Street and Smith to help on science fiction, to get it out of just being the ray guns, robots, and rocket ships, and start adding people to it, because that's what he was known as more as an adventure writer. So he and a few others were brought on board, and um, the new magazine then called Astounding Science Fiction. The editor there was told, publish whatever these guys um, sent to you, because they were changing what science fiction was, from being the impersonal to, we need to start peopleizing it, which is
Yeah.
what was done. And so you see a lot of that now, but it's also, you're able to tell, a lot of times when I talk to authors, they don't have, like, I'm not trying to philosophize, I'm not trying to, but your own personal philosophy will seep into it, because that's, you're pouring yourself into it. And it really communicates to me, is like, you are spiritual in nature. You've the relationship between religion and people, family, groups, and how the interaction of that, and what survives ultimately, what's more important. And I thought it was fascinating what you did there. Whether that was your intention or not, that's how it came across to me.
Well, thank you. No, I appreciate that. And it's one of the things I've enjoyed about talking to people post or being published is the themes that people pick out that either I didn't subconsciously know that I was putting in there, or things
Yeah.
that stood out to them that was um, things I thought maybe were a bit more subtle. But I know I appreciate you saying that, because those are things that I find popping up in other stories I've been writing. It's like, oh, there's a lot of family drama here, or there's faith is a or rejection of
Yeah.
faith is an important conflict point. So glad that's something that stuck out to you.
Yeah, and that's one thing that's good about Rise of the Future too, is like for somebody that's interested in that, you've got it. If somebody's interested straight into the hard science fiction, just the really brutal hard science fiction, you've got the Tom Vandermolen's Non-Zero. That one's just like
Great story.
brutal. It's a great story, but it's like, wow. And then there's the one that I thought was very touching, was Lisa Silverthorne's story, Summer of 30 Years.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, wow, that's, what would you do if you're in that that position there? And then Cal M hers was also, her personal story was really special, as well as her story.
Mm-hmm.
And it was fun when we did because that podcast just went up.
Yeah.
And just listening to her was like, just her story on just how she wasn't really expecting, I can't change, I'm expected to change. And like, when she realized that you don't need to do anything except for just be yourself. And that was, are you still in touch with her?
Yeah, actually, us writers, winners from Volume 40, we're all on, we have our group chats going on. We're also connected to the larger writer alumni community. So yeah, still talking to everyone. Really excited to see.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, really are. Yeah, no, but really excited to follow all the winners. As they go on their careers. So we've got. It's just going to be great. We've got great fantasy, great romantasy, great sci-fi, hard sci-fi, fun sci-fi. It's going to be fun.
Yeah. And for those of you listening from South Africa, from Australia, New Zealand, UK, this coming week, the book releases. And so you can get the actual print book, what Joe was just holding up there. You can actually get the book in stores in those areas. I think the release date is the 9th of July. So you'll start seeing it there in stores soon, to be able to not just get the ebook on Amazon or wherever you get your ebooks, but they'll be in the bookstores, and you'll be able to buy them hard copy as well.
Michael, that copy's $5,000 if you want it. That's how much it costs. Okay. And the only reason I wouldn't let it go is because I got another one of it. But that's it, $5,000. Hey, it's right there. Oh no, you got to take it as is, crinks, cracks, and everything. No, you're not getting the prestige. Yeah, whatever. That's mine. Wherever the hell it's at. I don't even see it at the moment. Oh yeah, that's another thing. Oh, we can talk about that later. But anyway, so how did you feel when you got out to LA, man? I mean, was it first off, was it what you thought it was going to be, and then what was just the overall feeling when I'm in LA? What the hell did I get myself into?
No, it was great. It was a lot quicker paced than I was expecting. The moment we touched down, it was okay. Let's get all the winners together. Let's start teaching you. Let's start giving you the tips from all the judges, and start learning how to be professional authors. And it was, everything was moving so fast. You don't really have time to sit back and process until it's over. And then when it is over, we were all just so sad that we were saying goodbye already. It just didn't feel long enough, but it was a great experience. Learned so much from the judges, not just about how to tell stories, but how to do the business of publishing. Learned a lot from the other authors, and it's great to see their journeys. We had people who had been entering the contest for years. We had other people like Cal and Amir who just entered once and won. So it was just really great to hear people's stories of how they got to be, how we all got to be in the same room together. Are you
going self, indie, or traditional?
That's a good question. If you talk to the judges, I know Mark Leslie will be on. later. He was strongly proponent of doing the indie and self-publishing. Dean Wesley Smith was very adamant that that's the future. I think that might be right. I think that might be the future. My only hiccup with it is I'm terrible at self-promotion. I hate talking about myself. I'm very bad at social media. So it'd be great if I could do traditional just to have someone else do that. But we'll see what happens.
Just remember, you don't have to talk about yourself. Just talk about your books or the process of the book. You don't have to talk about yourself.
Same difference for him.
Yeah.
No. Talking about your book is different because you know what's in it. You know, so if you kind of zone out on your book and you just don't think about anything else, you'll just. I mean, now don't give the book away. I mean, I have a problem with authors with this. I tell them all the time. They'll come on my other show and they're like, "Well, I say you just why have to buy the book now? I know everything's in the damn book." I hate when they do that. But I mean, it is easier if you zone out, especially a book that's been out for a little while. You can go on a show, TV show, radio show. Doesn't really matter, and you can just zone into your book, and you don't have to think about yourself. You know, I'm somewhere along the line. The host is going to drop a question, something personal, but you know that's coming. But most of it will just be, yeah, let me talk about my book, and it's more relaxing that way anyway. Usually, if I'm on a stage, I'll find somewhere or someone to fix on. It makes it easier to concentrate because it can get a little weird, man. But no, I think you do great. And indie is on its way up. I mean, I don't know if you can stop it at this point. I mean, traditional is not going anywhere, but because that's where the really, really, really big money is. But I think there's room for all of it, to be honest with you. At least now.
Yeah. But you got like Ingram, who I've had two of the people on the podcast. They're going more and more and more to validate and to work with indie publishers and self-publishing. They're providing platforms that somebody could go straight to Ingram, upload their book, and they've got, I think it's a database of 2 million, I think it's 2 million readers that you can then do promotions with them, targeting your specific audience, and then they'll market to them because they've got those emails and to help you sell your books. They got different promotions and stuff that they've been doing, which is a whole change of direction that they're adding to it. Because before, for the last, 50 years or so, they've been just a distributor. They're the largest distributor in the world, but they're just been a distributor. Now they're like picking up to deal with, as more and more people are self-publishing, to cater to that audience as well.
Yeah, good thing.
Yeah, I mean, and we have Writers of the Future Judges who got really successful that way. I mean, Hugh Howey with the Silo series, he started self-publishing, and he didn't need traditional at all. So there's a lot of things to think about, but right now I'm just trying to write the best book I can.
Sure.
So
this is the point. Hugh Howey went to traditional, and then he's going back to indie. He didn't like the traditional because he was.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
He was too pegged. It has to be a certain length, and you only do one a year. And he wants to go his own pace. And he likes he does a section, then it's a book, section, then a book. That's how he did The Sand and Silo. They were done in sections as he was writing them and publishing them, and then put together as a book.
Yeah,
if it works, it works. Yeah, that's what I'd say. If it works, it works.
Well, if I could do a little self-promotion here, then we're talking about this. I'm actually going to be dropping a free novelette on my website on July 1st. So if anyone wants to check out my website on that day, I'm going to be self-publishing a story just to test the waters. So
do you have a card for that, or some type of a social post you're going to have?
Yeah, I'll be putting it on socials. It'll be on my website. It'll also be going out primarily through my Substack, through my newsletter. To my website's at jacknashstories.com. You can find me at Substack at Jack Nash Stories, or you can look up No Cats, No Coffee. It's the title of my newsletter. It comes out once a month. And so this month will be some free fiction.
Well, give them the web address, though.
So the web address for the website is jacknashstories.com. For Substack, it's substack.com/@jacknashstories. And I should pop
so it will be a social post or not? So email me a link, whatever you just email it to me, and then we'll put it out on Writers of the Future.
Perfect, will do.
Yeah.
It's what's that, Kirby? Indie just means self-publishing, man. Independent publishing. That's all it means. Why were you writing Indian down? Or were you just misunderstanding what we were saying? I think you might have had a couple beers today, man. You might want to put that down and relax there, my friend. Oh Lord, it's it's very strange. So you're going to get out and about this year, Jack, and go visit any of the cons or anything, or?
Yeah, I need to figure that out. Recently just changed jobs, so trying to get a handle on the schedule, what things will be like this year. But going to be trying to do a local convention out here called Capicon. Going to see what the timing of things are. Hopefully I can going to try to do FanX. That one's a little up in the air, just depending on what else is going on. But yeah, like to do a few cons. Once I know, I'll be posting it on socials. So if anyone wants to meet up somewhere, happy to do that.
Yeah, because if you're going to make it out to Salt Lake City, I mean, you're in touch with Emily?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah.
But I know last time I went out to FanX, I had a good time. I had a good time at Dragon Con. I'll be at Dragon Con this year. I'll be out there misbehaving or something.
Yeah, we'll be in Tampa at Comic Con. I guess that's.
Yeah, I want to go to that one too. If everything.
Well, the first thing we've got in July, the end of this month, we've got San Diego Comic Con. Then we'll have Tampa Comic Con. Then we'll have Dragon Con. Then there's going to be Toronto Comic Con Toronto, and then FanX Salt Lake. And those are the ones that we'll be at.
That's five big ones there. I mean, those are all nice size conferences.
Yeah.
Jimmy, if you have a passport, you can go to the one in Canada. Yeah, just go get your passport. They don't take as long as they used to take to get. Yeah, go get your passport.
You need a passport to get there? I thought you just had a U.S. driver's license.
Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. I have no idea. I know some of my friends who live in Washington can go in for X amount of hours, but then they can't stay for, I think, more than 24 or 48 hours or something. I have no idea. It got weird after the Twin Towers thing. I don't know. It got strange. Mexico's the same way. It used to be Mexico, you could go down there forever. Now you can go in, I think, for 72 hours and you have to come back unless you get a permit or a passport. No, I haven't been down there forever. God, I've been in Mexico since I was in the Navy. That's like probably older than Jack is. Damn, that's pretty old. I don't know. So you're gonna put out something new. That's kind of cool. Drop on your website. That'll be nice and interesting to be able to go visit. Y'all go check out his website, guys and girls. Get out there, check out the website, see what you like. So what else you got listed on the site?
So on the site, I've got all the wonderful interviews I've done with you, Joe, plus some other media. Then there's also the links to Writers of the Future Volume 40, so people can go and check that out. I've linked to some of the reviews that have come up about the whole book, and then you can see some of my past publications. There aren't many, but most of them are free to read. So if anyone's curious to see some,
well, hold on. Next, I'm gonna bring Mark in with us. But watch this magic, people. Whoa, look at that, man! Magic just hit the button, and there he is, man.
Made it all even. Now we've got the 4 boxes.
Exactly.
Oh wait! Now we're gonna have to change his first name, guys. He's not a J.
Yeah, it's me, Jark. We'll call him Jark. So we got Jark, Jack, John, and Joe.
All right. Okay, let's do that.
So, Mark, how you been, man?
I'm not too bad. How about you?
We're here, man. It's always a good sign. We're out causing mischief and chaos. So I mean, everything's good up there. You back in Canada and hanging out up there, and
oh yeah,
enjoying the. Well, at least you got cool.
I'm enjoying the LA like weather we've been having lately with the heat waves and stuff like that. So.
Yeah. Yeah, I was talking to my station manager. She's up somewhere around, I think it's in Ontario, somewhere around Niagara Falls, and she was moaning the other day about how hot it is. I'm like, hot? Come spend a week with me. I'll show you hot, girl. I'll show you what hot is. Oh man, it's insane. But I'm gonna let you properly introduce yourself because I always butcher your last name every time I say it.
Okay.
And, so go ahead, tell them.
Yeah, my name's
a little bit about
Mark
yourself,
Leslie Lefebvre. I am Jark Leslie Lefebvre, just for today's show, just because the alliteration's too good with all the names. And I've been working in the book industry for more than 30 years. I started in 1992 working in the book industry, and I worked throughout it. Then that was the same year my very first short story got published was 92. So I've been living this delightful dual career, getting to write speculative fiction and read lots of it, and of course sell tons of it as a bookseller.
So I mean, so speculative fiction now. You might as well just tell what the audience what that means, because I already seen like 5 questions come up when you said that. I'm like,
yeah, no, my apologies. So I that's just a term I use to define science fiction, fantasy, and horror. Any of the fiction that really participates in that imaginative what if. Whereas with science fiction, obviously the what if is related to some sort of scientific thing. And in fantasy, it's usually what if some sort of magic thing. And often in horror, it's what if some sort of scary thing, which can be paranormal, and it doesn't have to be paranormal. But then, then you get into alternative history, which is sort of this, what do you call it? Do you call it science fiction? Do you call it fantasy? I think it's, I don't know. It's in the speculative realm.
Yes.
Whoa.
What? Yeah, well, that's true. It is in the speculative realm.
Before you came on, we were talking about ways of publishing, and you're noted for indie self-publishing.
Yeah.
And Jack has got the heebie-jeebies on that. So
yeah.
So I'm just curious about that, because he's the fact of traditional publishing means he doesn't have to do any of the self-promotion stuff. So is that
that's not true? So
maybe a little less promotion.
Well, actually, I mean, when you have a great publisher like Galaxy Press, of course they're going to do a lot of great work for you and promote you and stuff like that. But that is a rare exception. For the most part, when you're traditionally published, you're usually with a publisher where you're one of 50 different authors who have a book released that month, and maybe you have a PR person who works with you. So I have probably maybe 12 or 14 books that have been traditionally published, and the rest of I have 35 books out there. The rest of them I've self-published. And when I'm with a traditional publisher, sure, the month of the release and the month before the release, there's a PR person assigned to you. But to be quite honest, I end up doing 90% of the promotion after that. And so, and they do help you out. Some publishers help you out and give you some tips and things to do, and reach out to media for you. So when it comes to that aspect, whether you're traditionally published or self-published, you're still in the same boat. You're going to have to do 90% of the heavy lifting. Now, the benefit with a traditional publisher, of course, is they assign an editor and cover designer and all that stuff, and you work with them. Obviously, you get the edits done and stuff like that. With self-publishing, well, you've got to find the professionals to work with. You got to find the right people to do all that. So what I say the most important in self-publishing is self-directed. Not that you do everything yourself, because you got to hire the right people to do the right job and put out a professional product. Now, my very first book came out actually 20 years ago. I self-published a collection of horror stories called One Hand Screaming, and I did it taking mostly previously published stories that I had gotten the rights back to, and I didn't have a book out, and I thought, well, it'd be nice to go and do book signings, so I put together a collection. I made it available, and that's how I got started. I didn't get my, I think the next book I published was just a couple years later. I was editing an anthology for a traditional publisher, so that was the next book that had my name on the cover. But I think one of the things that you can do with self-publishing is experiment, right? So, Jack, if you're nervous about it, I mean, you have an award-winning story, and I know that Galaxy Press is such brilliantly supportive publisher that the rights revert back to you really quickly, more so than with other.
He never lost the rights. We basically had rights to do it first, and now he's got.
And so you have the rights immediately, and most publishers would be like a year or 6 months or whatever, especially in an anthology. But if you wanted to, you could put together. I call it like a digital chapbook. You know, like chapbooks are like nice little small things. Put it together, and maybe with an essay about the writing, what inspired you to write the story. Maybe an essay talking about your experiences at Writers of the Future. I think it was pretty spectacular. I mean, right? Yeah, I mean, some really cool things happened to you when you were there, right? Like, it was a really amazing experience. You even there's photos that I imagine you can put in the book, and you create, a standalone just to try it out. But then you can also have a link in the back of the book to say, hey, if you like this story, there's I've got beautiful volume 40. You can get all the stories. You can get whatever. And even doing, just going to show you an example of sort of digital chapbook. This is just an example of 3 horror stories in a really, really small book. It's only about 70 pages. And I take them along to conferences and conventions because my traditionally published books are $25. My self-published books are anywhere from $10 to $25. But this gives me something I can sell for $5. And it's not as much money. So it's a promotional strategy you can use. And also because it doesn't really cost me that much to print. If I feel like I really like someone I'm talking to, hey, so for example, let's imagine you're there, you've got Writers of the Future. It's a gorgeous, beautiful, what does it sell for in Canada? It sells for $29.95, but it is phenomenal, by the way. I was not a judge for these, so I didn't get a chance to read the stories until after it was announced. But oh my God, they're amazing. And I loved the audiobook, actually. I love the audiobook for this. So you have that available. And so maybe someone's looking at it and think, well, here's an example of the quality, and you sign it to them and personalize it, and you give it to them, and that's something really special they have, and that's something they remember, and then potentially they come back and buy the anthology. So, anyways, I'm full of all kinds of ideas on how you can experiment, especially if you're nervous about that.
Now, do you use Mickey Mickelson as a publicist?
Yeah, Mickey Mickelson is my publicist. Actually, he just sent me an interview for interview for a horror online horror magazine that's for coming out with my latest book and stuff. So yeah, he helps me along the way. So
that's something you have to your advantage too, Jack. You can get a publicist that will help you and book you. And you say, well, I don't want to do radio. I don't want to, but I want my story be reviewed. I want to do, I think you've done some stuff already where you, with our external publicists, you've got one that's happening in UK that's going out, and you just answer questions. You can do those things too. There's lots of ways to promote yourself without doing something that you don't feel comfortable with.
That's awesome.
Just so you know.
See, while we've been live, I've been sending shots out to the social media on TikTok because I don't have us logged into TikTok tonight, so I've been sending them over there and over to Rumble, which is other places we broadcast at. And people and that it's weird because I get all kind of weird responses, and I'm like, yeah, why don't y'all get on Yahoo so I can actually see them on the page, so I don't have to go looking around. But I've got 42 social media pages. Yes, it's a nightmare, as I can tell you. I don't have to do them all. I got some of my hosts in the network that help me out with them, that answer some of them, and I'll pick 3 that I just post something new to every day, whatever it may be. It could be any damn thing, but people just like to see something steady posted. And then, when a friend of mine sends me a book, I'll post a book on there. I've actually sold this guy right here, this book right here. I have actually sold 11,000 copies for this gentleman. That's how many we've sold off the network for him.
Wow.
And of course, it's an easy book to sell. It's a scary China alien, let me kill you kind of book. So it's a little bit easier to sell. But I tell in like Death of the Taxman, his book stays back there. It's the only copy I have left. That's my copy. So until I get new stuff from different hosts, and it's not even always Writers of the Future hosts, it's just different hosts. They'll send me stuff and they go back there. And as a matter of fact, there's Wolf's book right there. And of course, there's a couple of Writers of the Future's books there. And if you're into the Greek art, damn, my brain just froze up right when I said that. It's but I got all of their works back there. I got Homer, all of that stuff's back there. So it's interesting because on the old days before we won TV, nobody knew us back there. And then, because on video you can see so much, but you see with those 70-inch TVs, everything behind me, you can see. You can see everything back then. You can see it in great detail too. When I just did a thing for Discovery the other day, a practice shoot for them, I actually had to take all of this down because they wanted a clean backing for me, but it's kind of weird. So I mean, I know, Jack. What's your next big thing? You gonna go hang out with Mark, move up to Canada or something, and just team up or something. Hey, I mean,
are you touring through Canada, Jack?
Say what?
Are you touring through Canada?
No plans, but I mean, I'm happy to go there. I do have cousins in Alberta, so maybe time for a family visit and then
Oh, there you go.
come
There,
on
and there's
over.
some great bookstore. Where in Alberta? Are they like Calgary?
I think so.
Okay.
I can't. I'll have to
I mean,
check
Owl's
with them
Nest
again.
Bookshop in Calgary is phenomenal. They come out to when Words Collide, which is a great conference I go to every August, and they're really supportive of authors. So and
That's
they've
great.
had a lot of science fiction authors through their store over the years.
I imagine. And we'll have
What?
to catch up with Lance on Thunder Bay.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Lance, really far north from where I am.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Now,
You
one
know,
thing
if you-
people might not know is that Mark is our newest Writers of the Future judge. He just came on board literally days before the awards ceremony,
Yeah.
and we were jamming it through. And I said, "So can you make it out there?" He says, "Well," and so I had to. I mean, there's a lot of steps to get a judge approved. So what, it's jamming to get it through all the different lines, so that I could say, "Okay, good." And he opened up that date so that because you had something else going on that you just were able to push back a bit. So you come. So we were very happy you were able to attend and get yourself all gussied up for us. And
honestly, there's nothing like that week with the writers is just such a rewarding experience getting to network and interact. Even like the evenings where we're just chatting about whatever, and often it has to do with writing, but it's just such a fun-packed week. And I know the winners. I mean, Jack was probably exhausted because of all of the workshops and all of the great things that you got to do, and like in everywhere you looked, it was like smile. Camera.
Right? Oh yeah, because there's cameras everywhere.
You'll never feel more like a celebrity. I mean, unless once the book gets made from movie gets made from one of your books, right?
Fingers crossed. Aiming for it.
That's right.
Don't hold your breath though.
Yeah.
It's you got to watch Malieve with that camera, man. She's everywhere. It's
some great
and
photos
then,
too. I mean, I love seeing the photos. Like, oh, that's a great shot I can now use for whatever. So
Yeah.
When I get through putting them up on our website, all the ones we took, I'll send them. I think I took right around 3,000 pictures there.
Wow.
So yeah, half of them are just going to get tossed, and some of them are shots for specific things. But still, I've been posting them lately to the website. Just posting them. I just got to be careful because there are certain ladies there. If I put the wrong pictures, that will hurt me. So I don't want to get myself in any trouble. Jimmy, no, that's none of your business. No, actually, everybody there stays very, very busy. It's nonstop from the day they get off the plane until the day they get back on the plane. It's nonstop. It's lots of stuff going on. And when they do get free time, there's people like me and John and others that are bugging them for interviews. They're booking interviews outside of Writers of the Future with local press and stuff. I said, so it's just a lot going on.
Yeah, and one thing too, it's amazing is this is our 40th anniversary. We've been doing this for 40 years, and I mean, I haven't done it for all those years. I'm not that old. I've only been there for 39. So, but no, it's just what's really great is seeing. I mean, the judges involved with it, like Larry Niven. This is his favorite event of the year, and he's been around since volume 3, I think, maybe volume 2. And Bob Eggleton's been around since volume 5, and they just it's a highlight. It's so special what it does, and because that because of the way the contest was originally formulated and created by Mr. Hubbard, that there's no strings attached. It's like these guys had to earn 100% their status as a winner. There's no like, yeah, well, this is the cousin or the daughter or the mother or the father, or, they paid $1,000 instead of $200. None of that stuff is there because it's free to enter and the judging is blind. So whoever has the winners, they really are the best of the best. Now it's up to you, Jack, and all the other winners. You need to take your next step. We'll work with you, effort for effort, because I mean, I've had winners going back to Dean Wesley Smith, volume 1, and we still put him on media, help him help him out. And
I think that kid will do something with his career one day.
Yeah, hopefully he's going
to. You heard that, Undine.
Someday he's going to like take off and then watch out.
He's got something. Yeah.
I think so.
He might make a little change one day.
And then he and Christine's the first love story for the contest, because that's when they went to the first workshop in Taos, New Mexico. That's where they met, and they fell in love, and they've been together since. And
awesome.
So that was the first love story, romance story.
See, you can even fall in love at the thing. I know Christopher, his wife writes as much as he does. Yes.
Yep.
I didn't even know that when I first met him. And I found that out later on. I forgot who told me.
Yeah, they are so prolific. It's amazing. And then you've got the second generation judges. So you got Todd McCaffrey, who follows in the footsteps of his mom, Anne McCaffrey. And you got Brian Herbert, follows in the footsteps of his dad, who wrote Dune, Frank Herbert. So you've got this type of a continuation that's, the last thing that Frank Herbert ever wrote, which was on his deathbed, was the article for Writers of the Future. It was just that important to him. And the night when Jerry Purnell passed, you see on his nightstand, he finished reading the story. He did his judging, and then, so we've got that type of it's that important to these judges, and these are the big names of science fiction and fantasy. For them, it's that important to put the future of science fiction there, and so I think that's testament to the contest itself, but it also is testament to what you're getting in terms of the products coming out of the contest. You get people that really are, dedicated and concerned, and we've got a 65% success rate on our winners, which is, nobody's got that.
They had a lot of good winners, I'll tell you that, guys. A lot of good stories. A lot of these stories too, when you read them, are going to stick in your head. They have a range of stories: happy, fun, scary.
Yeah.
Kind of. Well, like Jack was talking about his story a little while ago. There's just a range of stories in there. There are rules to it, so you got to go to writersofthefuture.com. But you have a lot of freedom. I can tell you that, because I've read a lot of stories now. So I've got in 5 books with them, plus the other 10 I had bought in the package. So that's 15 books I've read of there. So there's just, and I've enjoyed them all. And some of those stories are actually stuck in my head. It's like anything with me. If I find something I really like, it'll be there for a while, whether it's television, radio, podcast, or a book. It'll stick there. Now that they have them in audiobooks, we have 39 and 40 in an audiobook. Oh my God. Now I can just listen. Oh yeah. I wish they would put them out before the damn conference, before the gala, but it's nice. I can just plug it in and listen and go. I'm kind of spoiled now. There's so much good stuff that comes in audiobooks. I just find it's easier for me all the way around. Jim, you can get it anything. I don't think you can get it in hardback, but you can get it anything else. Yeah. Well, go over to galaxypress.com and they'll have a realm of ways to buy the book, or just go to Barnes and Nobles or Books A Million or anybody, Amazon. It doesn't matter. It's everywhere.
And it is international. I mean, you can find the book in John. How many countries are your books now?
Well, with the ebooks, we're everywhere. But
of course,
this coming week, we're going to be releasing in South Africa, Australia, New Zealand, and UK. So basically, wherever English books are sold, and then everywhere else in the world, we've got Amazon. If you want to pay the shipping, you can get the hard books that way too.
Yeah.
But it's just it just continues to grow as a.
Or if you're very, very good, I might give you one at Christmas time. Mm-hmm. You got to be very good. We gave a lot away. Well, John had sent me one of the years. He sent me, I think, 200 we gave away. We usually give away between 2,000 and 3,000 books a year now, every year. And the last 2 years, we gave away quite a few lightsabers along with them. Well, people were getting lucky. They were getting I think it was a 4-book package. Actually, they were getting Fear, and they were getting 38 and 39, and what else was it? Something else. Anyway, they were getting 4 things from Writers of the Future. I was sending them. They were loving it. It was yeah, but I think it was Battlefield. They were loving it.
Yeah.
It's well, no, it's Kirby. No, you can send us. We'll give away anybody's books as long as they're not, just gratuitous, raunchy sex. But other than that, and I don't know if some of the late night shows might want to give them away, but still, no. We'll give away anybody's books. All you got to do is send them to us. If you want to send us books, write to me at iCarCox.net, and I'll tell you how to get to them. But we give away a lot of different books. A lot of people send us books and other gifts and stuff to give away. So, if you're very good and you don't have this book and you just for some reason can't afford it in this economy we're in, hang out for Christmas. You might get lucky. Hell, I might give you Jack at Christmas. You never know. We'll give Jack away at Christmas time.
So one thing too that with Mark, which we've interviewed 2 or 3 times on the podcast. He's got this series, Canadian Werewolf, in different parts of the world. And then we just finished. There's one that I'm really happy to that the next book, because he had this book that came out, or it was a novella on Stowaway.
Yeah.
With this young girl character, and she was. I really like this girl. She was so good, and then she never came back. And then I keep on pestering her because every time I talk, I just do that interview with him so I can keep on, giving him a rash, all over his body for. Where is she? Bring her back. Bring her back. So he said, and I listened to the end credits on the last one that I just listened to. And so I was among some of the different names. He said, okay, she's going to be coming back in the next book. So I'm really anxious for that one. But it's a real fun, that's a real fun series. It's, is it light horror? Or because it's not really just because it's a werewolf. It's not really horror.
It's humorous urban fantasy. So it's because he turns into a werewolf, but there's no real horror aspect to it. It's more urban fantasy.
There was that one that you have in New York where you had that one, the rock star that was kind of more along the
more thrilling and stuff because he was a bad guy, really bad guy.
Yeah,
but not really. A lot of people expect horror and go, wait a second, there's no werewolf prowling at night killing people. It's just a guy who turns into a wolf. But no, you really liked Bridget's character, and I found the perfect way to bring her back because Michael's got to go back to Canada. He's going to London, Ontario. So a Canadian werewolf in London, Ontario will be the name of that title. And I figure Bridget was a brilliant young woman. And she's about the age that if she skipped a few grades, she would be going to university. And so when he's there, he's going to encounter her. Like the way he encountered her the first time, which was a surprise. Like, no way.
Yeah.
So that I think I'm going to have a lot of fun with that. This should be a good time.
Mark, you got to give him a website because I'm getting spammed.
Sorry, what was that?
It said you better give them a website where they can find some of your stuff. I'm getting spammed.
Oh, yeah. So you do not have to spell Lefebvre or pronounce it. You go to markleslie.ca, or if you search Mark Leslie on almost any website, library, whatever, you should be able to find most of the
Mark Leslie author. Because if you do Mark Leslie, you also have a billionaire, and that's not you.
No, he's the rich guy. So he's got markleslie.com. I couldn't buy that from him, so I went with the Canadian version of the site. But I don't think he's written any books. So if you're on a retail website and you search me, I usually come up. My Canadian Werewolf series available in hardcover, paperback, ebook, and audiobook. And I got some great narrators who I've worked with for that series.
Yeah. Yeah, one narrator is a guy called Mark Leslie, not Lark Leslie. So
no, well, I had to. That was funny because I thought since Michael's spent so much time with a therapist, I thought wouldn't it be very meta to have me do the voice of the therapist? so that was kind of a fun thing because having Scott, my main narrator, doing the therapist, it would have been too much for the dialogue bits. We needed a separate voice.
So that worked out good.
What the hell? I'm sorry, I just got spam. Let me get out here where I can actually see y'all again. Everybody's deciding to spam all kind of places. Yes, he's in Canada. Imagine you get his books anywhere, though. He just told you how to find them.
Yeah.
So you
just go to Amazon. You can 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 go to Am And you can find Writers of the Future Volume 40 with Jack Nash featured as the grand prize winning author with his story. An amazing, exactly, just what you see right there. It's in bookstores all over the place right now in America.
That's right. Everywhere on the planet.
Yeah, in Canada, and soon to be in South Africa and Australia, New Zealand, UK.
Janine, I don't know. You know, we ask guests all the time what their favorite book is or what their favorite movie is. They're kind of like me. It's hard a lot of times just to post. I mean, guys, y'all can answer this question if you want to, Jack, or but either one of y'all, Mark. But it's I mean, I do get this question a lot. What's your favorite book? What's your favorite movie? What's your favorite TV series? I'm like, really? And it's hard for me. John and I have talked about this many times. It's just kind of hard, I guess, because I'm older now. It's kind of hard to just put a label on one thing. Either one of y'all guys, what you think, Mark? What you think, Jack? You think you got a favorite? I mean, just something that, okay, I got to watch this no matter what. I've got to watch this 500 times. I don't have a choice. I love this thing. Is it like Oz or something? I'm just kidding.
Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. I watch.
That's good.
At least
That's
once
good.
a year. That's one. And Die Hard. So Planes, Trains, and Automobiles I watch every Thanksgiving, and then follow with Die Hard at Christmas. The two films I watch. One's a comedy, one's an action adventure.
Oh man, they're kind of both kind of comedies. Actually, we do play. Orson Welles is At the End of the World. And we played the original
War of the Worlds.
We played the original, the one with all the commercials and everything in it. It's all original. It's when you listen to it, the first time you listen to this thing, you can kind of see why stupid Americans were panicking. It's because I mean, it does sound legit when you're listening to it. You're like, damn, it does sound legit. So we play that, and now we play Battlefield Earth, which is 4 or 5 days. I think it plays all together. Yeah, it runs for, I think it's for 5 days. But we do like Thanksgiving. Well, New Year's and Christmas is when we play them. So War of the Worlds plays, and then both War of the World plays on Christmas Eve at midnight, and it plays on New Year's Eve at midnight, and then we let Battlefield Earth play in between. And so they're playing on there. But it is weird to listen to, like I said, guys. You can go listen to it or watch it now. They've got it where you can watch it. Yeah, it's interesting. Other than that, I couldn't tell you. I mean, I really don't know. Favorite book.
I was thinking this morning. Yeah, favorite book. I just know the books that got me really interested in reading. Just when I was a young one, I was Jack London. Just the adventure stories, The Call of the Wild. That was just like, wow, it was so good. And then Mark Twain. I loved Huckleberry Finn and Tom Sawyer. Those were like, those were just such good books. And we had a thing, there's Texaco, the gas station. If you, depending on how much gas you bought, you could then get these credits that you could apply towards buying books. And so they had these books that you could buy. And so I remember just building my library because when we go to buy gas, I get them. So I got all these different books. I got addicted to reading off those things. And then it wasn't until I read the Lensman series that I got interested in science fiction. That was what got me started on that. But it's, and then, then I was pretty much diverse. I loved, Anne McCaffrey. So it was a real treat when I finally met her, and we became great friends when she'd come out every year for Writers of the Future. And she was also a total avid fan of cinnamon, which is my favorite, and then she loved root beer. And so we'd buy every brand of root beer we could find in Los Angeles and have it lined up. So when we brought her in, she'd go, oh, she'd be so excited when she'd see all the different root beers that she could drink while she was here. Just a lovely, lovely lady. But I was thinking this morning, the movie that I really like that stands out with me the most, because my favorite movie for years was White Christmas. I just love that. That movie was because it was 1954, whatever it came out, and but it was just, I loved that movie. And then, but a few years ago, another movie came out called The Greatest Showman, and to me, that's just like, it was so good. I love Hugh Jackman, and I love musicals. and that makes me a bit of an odd person out at most. What do you like? I like musicals.
Well, if Queen's in the musical, I'll be okay with it. I've heard a couple of they've done. I've seen some of the operas they've done.
Have you seen Come From Away? Now it's a stage play, but it is also it's airing on streaming, and wow, a fantastic actually.
What's it called?
Come From Away. It's about 9/11. It's about all of the people who were forced to land in a really small town in Canada, in Newfoundland. And it's just about all these strangers coming together, and it's like the town is overrun because the population went from like 2,000 people to 14,000 people overnight because they were forced to land somewhere because we didn't know what was going on, right? Who's safe, and it was just about all these people coming together. Really, really well done.
Oh, good. I just texted myself, so after this I can check it out tonight.
Well, I'll jump in with my favorites, and with them, I'll also have to say goodnight. Hear my toddler crying, so I'm gonna go relieve my wife.
Go take care of the baby. That's right.
Yeah. I think what did it for me, one of those series where it's really like this is something I want to replicate in a career, was just the Sherlock Holmes stories. I think in my grandparents, on their bookshelf, they had a collection of the original Sherlock Holmes stories, and I just devoured those. I just thought they were the greatest thing. I mean, and Sherlock Holmes is such a timeless character. But it was just, but those were also short fiction. Just a few thousand words each. I just loved it, and still love a classic detective story. But with that, Joe, thanks for having me. John, good to see you.
Jack.
Good to see you, Jack.
Leslie, great to see you again.
Good luck, baby.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay.
Have a good night.
Thanks, Jack.
Bye.
Good.
Yeah.
Until next time.
Jack mentioned mysteries, loving mystery stories. And one of the things, I read a lot when I was a kid, but one of the early things I latched onto was a series called Alfred Hitchcock and the Three Investigators. And it was these three kids, kind of like Hardy Boys, but set in modern day, like 1970, 1980. And they lived in Los Angeles, and they always consulted with Alfred Hitchcock on the mysteries.
Oh,
and
that's
they had a
cool.
little clubhouse in their backyard, and they would solve mysteries. And I just wanted so badly to be, I had these little business cards created, and this is like the early 80s. So it was hard to get business cards. I had business cards created, the Three Investigators, and we were in a small town of 2,000 people, so there's not really anything to investigate. But I just grew up loving those so much. And
that's so cool.
So it's kind of interesting. But George R. Earth Abides, George R. Stewart.
Check out real quick. I'll be right back in just a moment.
Hey, we got you.
George R. Stewart's Earth Abides, science fiction novel. I think it was written in like 1954, and I remember discovering that. It was probably in grade 8. I got it from the library, and I was reading it, but I was a really slow reader. So after the 2 weeks, I had to return it. I was only a few chapters in, and then I returned it, and then it was missing from the library. I couldn't get it anymore in the small town. And then I think I found it a few years later in a used bookstore, and I picked it up again, and I started reading it again. And I've reread that book probably 5 or 6 times. And it's about the world ending due to a global pandemic. I did make the mistake of reading it in 2020. So as we were trapped in the house, my partner and I, we read it together. It was interesting because I had 2 different copies of the book. So we would actually sit there and have the book in front of each other in like armchairs across the room. And one of us would read aloud while the other one was following in their own book. And we alternated reading chapters that way. And it was just something to do, which is kind of fun because she had never read it. And I hadn't read it in probably 10 or 15 years. So it was kind of a fun sort of early science fiction title that I remember loving.
Yeah, well, that's a cool way to read it, especially during COVID. Jesus, anything was fun during COVID. It's fortunately for me, I my broadcast schedules didn't change, and my maintenance company was considered essential worker, so we still got to be moving around some.
Yeah,
but I was going nuts, man. I was rewatching sci-fi shit I probably watched 1,000 times when I was a kid.
Yeah,
I'm like, no, I gotta get this. My wife's gonna divorce me, man. It's well, I like a lot of what they call near now science fiction. Time period. It's just like Babylon 5 or Expanse or Altered Carbon, things like that, which are within a couple of 100 years from where we are right now. Because you can see progressions of you can look back to sci-fi from the 1800s and look at what they were saying about today and see the politics are pretty much right on. And then you can look at where we would be heading if we stay on current courses. So it's interesting, and I like the fact that they actually include the politics into this. Star Trek is great, and it's always fun to watch, but it's not realistic on where our political environment is right now.
Yeah.
Today we would take all of our political issues with us into space. I'm sure Elon's trying to figure out a way to leave them at home, but
yeah,
he's going to revolutionize everything. He's another one, just can't sit still. I was thinking the other day, I was watching one of his missions coming back to Earth, and NASA and Russia and everybody else for that matter who brings in anything from space has to wait 3 or 4 minutes before they can talk to their craft. Not Elon. He uses Starlink now. He didn't even lose communication with his ship. I'm like, this is some bitch. He can land him in his house. He is so far ahead of our government and the other government's not even funny. And he's science fiction in himself. I mean, he's going to go to Mars. He can't help himself. That's where he wants to be. Somebody asked me the other day, I was talking with an author just a couple of weeks ago, and the question came in, if Elon offered you a trip to Mars, would you go? I was like, oh, I don't know, man. Maybe if they had like a Hilton there or something, I might go. I'd be kind of spoiled. It was interesting though, because a friend of mine who we have some interactions with Bigelow, with another organization I'm with, and he's big into a lot of different kind of sci-fi. And for a multi-billionaire, you don't usually hear about billionaires being interested in sci-fi. Yeah. Even Elon, who is interested in space, you don't really hear him interested in sci-fi. And it's just weird to actually hear him talk about different space programs or different alien or different movies that are science fiction movies. Like who was it the other day was trying to get me to watch Clowns from Outer Space. I'm like, come on, dude. That movie's how old I didn't watch it then. I ain't watching it now. Yeah. You should get it, man. There are some things I just don't want to watch. And lately, I get so little free time to read. I always tell people, look, I don't want to hate on somebody's book because I haven't read it, and I hate doing interviews where I haven't read their book. But it happens a lot these days, so I always tell them the same thing. If you've got it in the audio, send it to me. So this gentleman who has a great voice sat there and read his whole book and sent it to me.
Oh, wow.
I was like, well, dude, you're in the wrong line of work. You should be doing this for a living. And it caught me for a loop, actually. And it was a pretty long book, and he had a great voice, and you could tell him he would, put explanations on certain things. And it gave me much better understanding who the man was too. That was kind of interesting in itself. But if it's sci-fi, fiction, different things like that, I'm okay with it. Some fantasy. I guess it really depends what it is. I mean, how is it for you? I mean, when you're looking at stuff, because I know you're writing stuff. So when you look at something like somebody's, you had seen a sci-fi movie or you had read a good sci-fi book or a good fiction book. I mean, what are you taking away from that? It depends on the story, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I kind of read across the board. I read multiple genres. I just look for something that's going to appeal to me. And again, I mean, I don't know. I take a little bit of something different from everything I read. But I have a sickness, of course. I can't go past a bookstore without walking in. And often I can't walk into a bookstore without walking out with having purchased at least one book.
That sounds like somebody I know.
Yeah, I mean, and it's kind of funny. I mean, if I stop buying books now, I will have enough books to read for my entire life. But that's okay, because I sometimes will buy a book and it'll sit on my shelf for years, and I don't. Maybe I'm not ready to read it, but I want to have it for when I'm ready to read it. Yeah. And it's kind of a fun experience. I remember there was one book I put on my shelf. I think it was there for 6 years. And then finally I was walking by, running my fingers along the edge, and this one was sticking out a little. And I was like, oh yeah, I haven't read that one yet. And I pulled it out and I read it. And I remember it was a Dennis Hamill novel. It was more of a police procedural thriller, and I finished reading it. And I went out and I bought every single one of his books that I could because I loved it so much. And I was like, this guy's awesome. I got to get everything. And I was sad because several of his books were already out of print. And I had to source them at used bookstores because I couldn't get them anymore. So that's one of the dangers when you wait too long to start reading.
And these are used books now. I mean, there are online used book sales now, which is a plus.
Yeah.
And, I meant to tell Jack, but, when you travel, anytime you come down to New Orleans, there are so many bookstores throughout the French Quarter. And they're always looking for people to come sit and sign. And some of these bookstores are 100 years old, 125 years old. They've just been you go in there, or some of them will be art stars. You'll go in there. They've been there so long that the dust on some of the art is like it's an inch thick and shit. You're like, come on. But I found some good stuff in there, man. And sometimes they know what it is. Sometimes they don't know what it is. And sometimes you get a good deal. Sometimes you don't. But they got a lot of old books in there. They got a lot of new books in there. They got all. And I have noticed, though, in these stores, I don't want to really say it's for sure, but it does seem like maybe the person that owns it or the persons that own it, a lot of the books in there are things they would probably like to read themselves. Just because a lot of the books in these stores are just one or two books. There's no more than that.
Yeah.
So it's but they sell a lot of books, man. You'll be sitting there watching people come in and out of there all day long. And then sometimes I'll get somebody to just come sit there right on the corner of the bookstore on the sidewalk and be signing books all day. And it's interesting. But I did hear that they get a percentage of anything, any sale on any book. It's like 10% or something. And for letting you sit on their sidewalk, this bookstore that lets you sit on their sidewalk. And which is not bad. I mean, on Royal Street, on any given day, they're going to be anywhere from 10,000 to 100,000 people walk up and down that street. So it's easy to make a lot of money if you got a good book, or if you're a good salesman. Those people I watch, those artists at Jackson Square in front of the cathedral, they sit there and paint a picture for you of you or anything you want, and within an hour or 2 hours, they're making a buku money, $400 or $500 a picture, 3 or 4 a day. I mean, that's good money for just sitting out there in front of the church, drawing stuff or painting. And they got the ones that do sketching, they got the ones that do pastels, they got the ones that do oil. I mean, they're just sitting out there every day. I'm thinking, man, I need to learn how to do some art, man. What is this? But it's funny. On the other side of the fence, they have the tarot readers, and they're making good money too.
Oh yeah.
I guess people just want to spend money. The tarot readers are actually right in front of the church. They actually put the artists on the other side of Jackson Square, out by the street. It's interesting to watch them. And you'll be out there some nights. There'll be 10, 12 of them out there, and there'll be a line for each one to come read their cards at $60 a pop. So,
now, one thing we've got with Mark is really big on Indian self-publishing, and he was also the president of the Canadian Booksellers Association, and created which part of Kobo?
Kobo Writing Life, the self-publishing platform for Kobo was my baby.
Yeah, so I think it's pretty fascinating. Anybody that's listening to this also that's interested in more direction on how to proceed. You've got a story, you've written it, and what do you do now?
Yeah, so I mean, the first thing I always recommend is you need to get it edited. You need to get a second set of eyes, ideally a professional set of eyes, to go through the story and work with you to refine it and make it the best it can be. Which is sometimes even before you submit your story to a publisher, you still want to clean it up and get it as tight as you can. And then you're probably going to want to look for a cover designer as well, some sort of design to make a beautiful cover for the book, because people do judge a book by its cover. And then, of course, the promotional blurb, the sales copy, again, you got to remember, it's not a blow-by-blow of what happens in the book. It's something that will intrigue you, the way that the back cover copy of Writers of the Future Volume 40 here says the future of science fiction and fantasy is in your hands. There's the log line. You're like, oh my goodness, this is exciting. And it talks about what you can expect, and it gets you excited about wanting to read the book. And then what I usually tell people is, you have the choice of going direct to publish, and usually start with ebooks, because ebooks are easier than print, because it less steps in order to get it ready. And there's free ebook conversion tools. You can create an account directly with Amazon, Kindle Direct Publishing, to get the ebook loaded to Amazon. You can go to Kobo Writing Life, for example, to get your book onto Kobo in their platform. And then even a company like Draft to Digital, where you can use to distribute to other places as well, like Apple or Barnes & Noble. And they also have their direct sales platforms. And there's so many great free tools like that to help you get your book out into the market. That means it allows you as the author not have to worry, how am I going to make an EPUB? Well, you load your Word document and it gets converted for free into a nice EPUB. Draft to Digital even does it and gives you templates and allows you to take the EPUB and then load it directly to wherever you want to sell it. And that means, that allows you more time to focus on polishing that, making it the best story you can, working with an editor, working with a really great cover designer. Those are some of the things that, and as I was telling Jack, I think a lot of authors may be nervous about it, like doing a full book because it's a lot. So maybe start with a short story that you already know is amazing, that's already been published somewhere, so it's good, it's been edited, and then you test the waters and sell that for 99 cents and just see if people kind of like what you have to put out there. I've done full-length books. I've done a lot of short story collections because I like having the themed collection. So 3 Halloween stories or 4 stories to be read around a campfire, or some of the ones are some of my stories that are a little bit more literary or inspired by, like the Lottery by Shirley Jackson and those classic tales that have always inspired me. And so, yeah, I think things have changed. When I first started writing, it was on a typewriter, and I had to mail my manuscripts away, and I had to wait 6 to 9 months for a rejection. Or as much as 6 to 9 months for a rejection to come in the mail, and then I'd mail off another one. I didn't even have a photocopier in the town I lived in. I had to retype the manuscript because they would often just send back the first page of the manuscript in a small number 10 size envelope. And I'm in Canada. I couldn't get access to U.S. stamps. I had to get international reply coupons. So I'd pay $1.50 for this international reply coupon, and then the poor editor would have to go to their post office and turn that into stamps. It was a 25-cent stamp. So it was really expensive thing to do. And so that was, as I started doing that in the 80s, I finally sold my first story in the early 90s. But then digital allowed, the ability to submit stories. I mean, Writers of the Future accepts electronic submissions, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Saves a lot of the stamps and all those envelopes. You can submit it that way. But just because you can submit it that way, and it's so much easier, and Galaxy Press makes that so much easier for you, doesn't mean you should take shortcuts. It still means you should get the best story possible, because obviously, if you're thinking about a market like Writers of the Future, you're competing against some of the world's best up-and-coming science fiction writers. So it's a tough contest because there's lots of amazing writers out there writing some stellar tales. Like when I look at Volume 40, and I think about the quality of the amazing stories that were selected, I think there were really good stories that didn't make it all the way. They were good, and the judges loved. But I mean, I guess the way that it works, it's a blind read, and so you've got the judges, all these different judges reading them, and it's the consensus of these were among the favorites from all of the judges. And so there's probably stories that a judge thought was the best story they ever read, but maybe other judges didn't like it as much. So, and that's another lesson for writers is, hey, you never know. If it gets rejected, it could just be because, they've already had a story that was very similar that they've already selected, or one of the judges loved it, but other judges didn't love it. And you never know. Maybe that's something you can sell to another market. Maybe it's a story that is, you can publish yourself and get it out there and into the market, which is what I did 20 years ago. I am celebrating, I'm doing a 20th anniversary edition of One Hit Screen called 20 Haunting Years. It's going to be twice the size. The original one was 47,000 words. This one's over 100,000. I got new stories. I'm so thrilled. And it'll be coming out on the 20th anniversary of when I first self-published, because it feels like so long ago. And I've learned so much more about this industry.
Now, just when you were talking about that, I just realized too, today is Saturday, the 29th, tomorrow being the 30th. that's the end of the quarter. So anybody that's looking at entering the contest, either Writer Illustrator contest, you've got the rest of today and all day tomorrow until 11:59 p.m. Pacific time, which is the California time, to get your story in. So if you've been like thinking about it, or your partner or somebody that I need to enter, help them, to get the story submitted. It's really easy to do. It doesn't cost you anything. You just need to go to the portal at writersofthefuture.com and upload their story. And if anybody's got any concern about you maintain full rights to your stories. Even the guys that just got published, immediately they have the rights. They can go, and now that the book's been published, the story's been published, they immediately can go and sell it again. And we work with you. So anyway, you've got a day and a half to get your stories in or your art submitted.
Get your ass out there and do what the man said. Mark, how much of your writing deals with Canada itself? I noticed I catch authors a lot of times writing about things they're familiar with. Sometimes it'll be their neighborhood. Sometimes it'll be their state. Sometimes it'll be a country. And I know, I've heard you talk about Canada. So I'm pretty sure you're well versed with the whole damn country. So I was kind of curious how much of that plays into your writing.
A lot of it does. So my Canadian Werewolf series, he lives in New York. He travels to LA in one of the books, but that's all set there. Because I love New York City so much, and I love LA. Actually, it was thanks to the Writers of the Future 10 years ago. It was my first time spending any time in LA, and I ended up setting a story, at the hotel where we stay, and in neighborhoods and in restaurants that I was familiar with when I was visiting. But I have a bunch of books I've published with a publisher here in Canada, and I've done true ghost story books. So I have Haunted Hamilton, Ontario, our version of Pittsburgh, I guess, Steeltown, where we produce a lot of the steel here. Sudbury, Spooky Sudbury, which is Canada's nickel capital of the world, and I grew up in Sudbury. Creepy Capital, which is our Ottawa, nation's capital, and so some of the books are very specifically like ghost stories of Ottawa. So that's going to be very, very particular. One of the short stories, for example, that is going to be in One Hand Screaming 20 Haunting Years, is a story set at a camp near where I grew up in Northern Ontario. Camp Willabosca was the name of it. And I thought, wouldn't it be cool to have some creepy ghosts that run through the woods and kill people at Camp Willabosca? Because I was always afraid of the dark and afraid of what might be creeping at me from the woods. And so, a lot of my stories have a definite Canadian influence. And the other thing about them too is most of my stories apologize, because that's very Canadian.
Yeah, that's one thing about your stories. So even though it takes place in Los Angeles or New York, he's so Canadian.
Yeah. Well, Michael is a pushover small town country bumpkin from Canada. So taking this fish out of water, I love the concept of him being like really uncomfortable, not being comfortable like in a big city like New York or Los Angeles, where he's a bit of a pushover, except he happens to have superpowers. So he can kind of handle himself, but he doesn't know how to handle himself because he's more of that, kind of like a Peter Parker sort of character, where he's a meek, mild nerd who has some special powers.
That's his hero.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. Yeah,
so I'm curious to see what happens now. Now that he's come to grips with his camp that he's just leaving from. Now he's got some recollection. He's now made some connection to his transition. I'm curious how that's going to play out in your next books.
Me too.
If it all goes away. Yeah. Or if it goes away when you.
But one of the things you learning this about therapy and stuff like that is, okay, I know what I need to do. I may not be able to do it right away, so it's going to take some work. So I don't think it's going to be like a switch for him. It's going to be a process.
Well, something's going to happen. He's going to find out who his real parents are now and get some of dig into his roots. So obviously something's got to happen.
Oh, that's going to be fun. I can't wait to figure that out once I'm writing it.
Yeah.
Well, all right. No, I was asking because we have a lot of hosts in Canada from all across y'all's great country, from BC all the way back to the other side. We even got some up there in Saskatchewan, man. I asked him, is there any other people live up there besides y'all? Just come on. There's not much, but it's interesting because it's a lot like America in the fact that when you go from one coast to the other coast, you see a distinct change in personalities and attitudes, even in political beliefs. it always amazes me when I'm looking at a country like that. And then you brought in Ghost. Well, Michelle DeBroche was like that. We call her Elvira of Canada. She's been on every TV show there is when it comes to this stuff.
Yeah.
One of the reasons she runs the station, but it's I noticed that when she talks and she includes a lot of Canadian stuff in the backgrounds of what she's doing. Even though she does a lot of traveling, she spends a lot of time in the US and France and Italy and places like that. She still includes a lot of it. And it's just something for me being an American, it's nice. Mm-hmm. Because I get an inside look at Canada from a different point of view, or from a different view, I should say. So I actually enjoy it. That's why I was asking you, but it is something I like. I noticed not all hosts do it, but a lot of, I mean, not all hosts, not all authors do it, but I noticed a lot do.
Yeah.
So I just want, that's one reason I want to bring it up. People, use it. It's because it's like a fantasy for me walking through the area, as y'all describe in different places and different things or different events. It's always fun that way. And I get to learn about different parts of the country.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, one thing I mentioned that Mark's been on the podcast, I think 3 times now. So you're at the top echelon of guests on the podcast. But one thing we're starting to tomorrow, for at least in certain parts of the world, is the People's Choice Podcast Awards.
Yep, we're going to be playing it a little bit.
Yeah, so we want people to definitely go in there because we want to get nominated. I want the Rise of the Future podcast nominated, and we've also got the other show, News on the Flip Side, with Joe. We've been finalists for like 4 years. And we want to actually be a winner. We want to take the next one and win the contest. I mean, that's fine. There's over 5 million people that vote on this thing here, but
I'm not hateful. I'm not hating that we're finalists. It's just I would rather not. I'd rather be the damn winner.
Yeah. I should bring home a trophy once in a while, right?
That's what. Yeah. I mean,
we get a trophy. We get a trophy, but we want one that says winner, not finalist.
I want the first place one, man. I don't like losing. I mean, I've won local broadcast in New Orleans several times over the years, so I like to win. I tell you what, do you want to see some crybabies? You go see WWL and WRNO when I win. These big multi-million-dollar radio networks, and they're like, "How did you beat us?" I said, "Because we're better than you." And they're like, no. I said, "Yeah, we're better than you." I said, I beat out the main in the last 10 years. I beat out the main 2 talk radio stations in our city 5 times. They just cry like you. And I'll call into their show. That's the best part. I'll call into one of their shows. "Hi, you losers. How y'all doing today?" You got to rub it in when you win, man. It's because it's a tough market. But RNO is a huge network, and so is WWL. Both of them are coast to coast networks. And it's always fun to beat them out in a head-to-head, especially when they're doing like one's doing all local talk radio and the other one's doing all stuff like which I think WWL is all conservative, like Sean Hannity and all of that. It's some big names on there to be beaten. What do you mean, Jack? We don't care what they play. That's one thing you'll never hear in this station is, even though we have liberals and conservatives and independents, if you listen to News on the Flip Side, it's a centralist-based show, yes. We like to hate on everybody. Yes. Left, right, up, down. We don't care. We want to hate on everybody.
Joe.
Well, I mean, somebody's got to do it. And, it's just one of the, no, we don't talk about that here either. No, sorry. Canada's nice if y'all want to move up to Canada. That's what I hear. A lot of people's going to be moving to Canada in November. So, Mark, you better push over, man. We got a lot of big people.
We have a big landmass, but most of us are just kind of like along the border of the 40. I
know it is kind of weird the way that works. Yeah, it is kind of weird.
Now, are you going to have a show, Mark, on UPRN, or that was just an idea?
Oh man, I am so disorganized with my own podcast. Trying to get organized to do something like that is just like this extra step of work that I don't know if I'm ready for at this point.
Oh man, one of these days I'll put you in touch with Michelle, because actually we would probably make your life a lot easier than harder. The way we've got it set up, it's, how can I say this without offending half of my hosts? I call it radio for idiots. It's so easy. Well, it's so easy. It's just so easy to do now. So everything's interactive, like I can drag in commercial, or I can just upload them, like, do stuff like this. And
News on the Flip Side. It's time for you to get out and nominate your favorite podcast. There's an amazing show I want you to consider for the People's Choice Podcast Awards. The News on the Flip Side, in the category of politics and news. News on the Flip Side is a much different news and political program, which is not deemed as opinion news.
We can't play all on it right now. But
I know that amazing voice. I'm pretty sure I know that.
Yes, I know that amazing voice too, and I appreciate
spectacular voice from Canada.
Yes. Every time she does one for me, I'm always happy. It's who was it? It's Emily.
I didn't. She has such a great announcer voice. It's like, ooh, I could use her for some voiceover work.
Yeah, so it's we use it for the podcast, which was what you just heard. But no, I mean everything is so interactive now, and so it's all you do now is send out a link and you go in there and write what you want, and then you send out the link when you're ready, and that's pretty much the end of it.
And StreamYard is such a phenomenal tool. Like you just demonstrated, you can preload videos, you can have visual images, you can do all kinds of stuff.
And you can put your whole screen up there if you want. Yeah, so it's just set up now where everybody has whatever time they're doing, whatever time slot they have, and then they just a lot of the hosts now book them up 2 weeks in advance, because a lot of our hosts are booked out. Like Michelle books out 6 months in advance, but I think StreamYard will only let you put up 2 weeks ahead. But it's all set up. You just go in when you start, you hit click, you send out your link, you hit click, and you start. And that's why we like it. It's really easy. But the hardest part to any of this, of course, is dealing with your guests or whatever topics you're going to have and stuff like that. And fortunately, I've been around for a long time, so I can cheat. I know a lot of people, and I know a lot of topics, so I just cheat sometimes. And but I will tell you this: the 3 top shows in this network that have won, there was one when I was talking about an experience I had in Gulf Breeze, Florida, which was over 11 million plays. It's the other 2 are also other hosts talking about stuff. It's great because guests are great, and guests give you numbers and help you to get things and get places and sell books and do stuff, but in the end, most networks like these are going to have guests 2 or 3 times in the same network. So it's really more about the host who's talking to the network. That's like when they hear us on John and I on Saturdays, they get sane and insane at the same time. So it works out real well. It's why the show does real well. I mean, it shows last week is 1.67 million or something. So it's just one of those things. But when you get ready, just I know I had mentioned to you last time I had seen you in Los Angeles. But when you get ready, let me know, because y'all are half a country apart from each other. Well, no, she likes Dave Scott's. I don't know if you know who Dave Scott. Dave Scott's on here too, and he does a 4-hour show at night. He does a late night slow, and then there's several other Canucks on here that are working hard, taking care of their stuff, and all different topics too, from paranormal stuff to how to save your life or change your life or make yourself happy or things like that. We have a couple other shows that do authors on the networks as well. One of them also out of Canada, so it's interesting how it all works out. Now I hear that your leader's moving to Cuba to take over his official spot as the Cuban dictator, but I couldn't help myself, man. Johnny, you don't even need to know who we're talking about now.
I know exactly who you're talking about. Yeah,
we're not going to mention the infamous guy's name. What do you mean? Besides, y'all know who I call him. I call him Mr. Pink Shorts. So ever since I've seen him in them hot pink shorts and that pink T-shirt, he's always been Mr. Pink Shorts to me. He's no worse than any other leader on the planet right now. I'm just going to say that and leave it at that.
Speaking of writing, this is something here, being the author's Quill icon. It really is this is an opportunity for people that want to become writers to tune in and to get the encouragement. And you're listening to the people now that are just, all we are is about supporting writers. Joe is he's a born again lover of writers. Once we connected up, once we made through our initial love dance that we had 4 years ago, when I made it through his gauntlet challenge.
That's the girls' gauntlets, but still, it's. Speaking of that, I want to talk to you something about after the show. But I really do I like to help anybody, to be honest with you, but
Yeah.
I like to see authors, like I said, I don't get to read as much, but I get to listen in audiobooks. So it's just important to me these days to hear good. Besides, every now and then I like that really good fantasy or sci-fi movie that comes out, or that just, grabs you and you're like, wow, this was really good. And today it just doesn't seem like there's as many, or maybe there just doesn't seem to be as many fresh ideas. So I'm encouraging everybody, write until you hit that sweet spot, and it comes out on TV. I've talked with the author of Fire Sky many times. That book did well. The movie did okay. And I've talked to a lot of authors who've got movies to their credit. Some good, some not so good. But I'm ready for something new. So I'm always telling, write as much as you can, write as many as you can, get them out there, and hopefully it's the one that really changes people's opinions about stuff. What's the Christopher? Yes, can you change the world with a book? Yeah, I think you could, actually, if it's the right book.
For sure. It's happened many times before.
Yeah.
Not necessarily fiction, but...
No, fiction can change someone's life. Someone can read a story and finally read about a character that resonates with them, and they see themselves on the page, and that can change their life remarkably. I mean, think about John. Think about, you were talking about the first books that you ever read. That changed your life. Look at you. You're a publisher. you loved it so much. Look, now you get to create careers for other writers, which is just amazing, and continue to push out works, because let's be honest, we need books. We need nonfiction books. We need fiction books. So we need to learn. We need to grow as people. But fiction allows us the ability to escape and imagine and see things, especially science fiction and fantasy, where we can actually talk about things that we can't talk about without getting into fights and stuff like that, because there's going to be some interesting juxtapositions and diametrically opposite viewpoints. But when you take it and put it in a science fiction environment or a fantasy environment, you can talk about it in a way that people don't get defensive, and they maybe open their eyes and they can see it because they've stepped back. And that not only can be a great way to escape and enjoy, because I remember talking to Writers of the Future Judge Kevin J. Anderson about what is it about fiction when you're going through a hard time. As he said, the real world can be pretty scary and some bad things can happen. But in my fiction, when I write my fiction, the good guys can win, and good can prosper over evil. You can control the happy ending. And that's one of the reasons that, horror potentially as a genre is going on a roller coaster. Most of the time, like 99.9% of the time, you survive, but it's scary. And the same thing with, thrillers or horror or any of those genres. It can be really, really scary, but usually there's some sort of happy ending. And in writing, if it's too scary, you can close the pages. But sometimes it haunts you. But that, I think, so books change lives 100%. They are without a doubt, life changing. And I am so lucky that I've got to live my entire life surrounded by books, in my entire adult life, not just working on creating and writing books, but also helping shepherd books into the hand as a bookseller, hand selling, putting books into people's hands, saying, you're going to love this. And that's one of the most magical experiences, when somebody recommends a book and puts it in your hand and you go, you're so right. That's great. I love it. Recommend something else.
50% of everything I've read's been somebody recommended. I hate to say the other 50% has been by really good covers. I tell these illustrators all the time about, you'd be surprised how many of us dummies buy a book because wow, this is a really good cover, man. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to read this book. Stupid me should have just flipped it over and read the back before I bought it, but it happens sometimes. But
that's a good point there, Mark. Yeah, and there's three primary ways that people will get a book. One is like what you do. Your author, you find an author you love, you're going to read everything from that author. That's number one. Number two is by recommendation. Someone says this is a great book, and then number three is when you peruse, you look at, okay, that cover looks cool. You look at the back cover and you're going through a section. I like I like thrillers. So you just go in the thriller section, and now with Amazon, you've got all the different subgenres that listed off.
Yeah.
When you don't have the bookstore anymore, but that's number. You just look at that, see what else you got, and you just start perusing covers to see something that catches your attention. But those are the 3 top ways that people will find out in that sequence the books that they're going to read.
When I worked when I was in Ottawa as a bookstore manager way back when, we had Mr. Kiley came in. I'll never forget Mr. Kiley. He was retired from a regular job. He was working as a security guard, and he loved to read. So he's there doing the guard post overnight shifts. And Mr. Kiley must have read 2 or 3 books a night. And he would come in every few weeks, and had a loyalty card membership where he'd have the $5 coupons and stuff. And he would like drop like $20 or $35, because every $100 you spend, you got a $5 thing mailed to you. So he would have hundreds of like $100 of $5 coupons. That's how many books he bought. And every time Mr. Kiley came in, he would recommend 2 or 3 great books. I could never keep up with them, but I always looked forward to him coming in, because he'd always recommend something I'd never heard of, and I would check it out. And oftentimes when I checked it out, whoa, he blew my mind. But then this was 2 competing chains in Canada. I was working at a mall. This was at a Kohl's, and Smith Books was another chain. And I was on my lunch break. And what do I do on my lunch break? I wander the mall and I go into the other bookstore and browse books and I was there. Mr. Kiley had been in my store, and he had just bought like 10 books and I had all these coupons. And then I was in the other store, and Mr. Kiley was at the cash talking to them and bought another 10 books. And he also had loyalty membership card. So I was thinking, whoa, this guy is even like twice as voracious when it comes to reading. But those kinds of experiences with personal recommendations are key. I know both at a chain store here in Canada and an independent store recently, because I'm in bookstores all the time. I always pay attention to those little staff recommendation signs. Like one of the ones said, this was a chain store, Stephanie recommends. So it was like Stephanie was the recommendation, and underneath it said Lord of the Flies set at Disneyland. Mm-hmm. And I went, okay, I really enjoyed Lord of the Flies. I really like theme parks. This is a horror novel where a hurricane hits, and it's a Disneyland. It's called Fantastic Land, and I'm about 3/4 of the way through it, and it is so good. It is such a great book. And it's like, no, well, now that I know Stephanie recommends good stuff, I'm going back to see what else even if she's not there, she's got the little sign, got that little card. And that can really help. I mean, I picked up this one here at an independent bookstore in Ottawa. It was, again, it's like How to Protect Bookstores and Why. Being someone who's very interested in the book industry and passionate about bookstores being a cultural center for a community. That's one of the ones I saw it. There was a little card recommended, and I had to pick it up.
It's weird down here. They do art classes where they're allowed to have wine. So they have the instructor, and everybody does their own pictures, and they have wine. But they also have a class where one of the gentlemen or one of the ladies sits and reads the book while everybody has a glass of wine while the book's going on.
That's
I
cool.
had never really thought about that before, and I was like, well, that's interesting. And as long as the individual's got a good voice, it's got to be enjoyable. I mean, decent book, a good voice, glass of wine. Shit, how can you go wrong?
Sounds like a great evening.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like a good evening. That's what I'm thinking.
Growing up, I had an English teacher in public school, and at the end of that last half hour of classes, if we got all the work done, he would read to us. And he read The Hobbit to us through the course of the entire term, like every day, half an hour. And he had this beautiful British accent. And so it was just great to listen to The Hobbit that way. And also John Christopher. We listened to him read some John Christopher classic science fiction novels. And we're just thinking about Mr. Roberts reading those stories. And I would doodle. I would do little cartoons and doodle while he was reading. And it was just one of my favorite times. Yeah, because it was almost like you said, Joe, is you're there having wine, you're painting, and then you're listening to a story. And I love listening to audiobooks too. So that was a great experience.
Yes, I know. I know one of the owners, one of them, he said, we ought to come sit one afternoon with us and just come listen to one of the stories. And I just got off work, and I said, you know what? I said, I'm filthy dirty. I said, I'm come sit on the other side of the class and listen. And he comes by and brings me a glass of wine. He says, here, just sit and listen. the lady had a fabulous voice. The story was very interesting. I said, and I stayed for about an hour, but I had to get my butt home. It was very enjoyable. Probably will go sit and do it again. Frank, I would recommend your store, but I can't remember the damn name of it at the moment. It is something to enjoy. But I didn't even know if they even allowed y'all to do that kind of stuff in Canada, because it was kind of weird down here for a while. They were like, no, that don't sound right because you're telling people to drink and drive. No, you don't have to drink and drive. Somebody can be there, or somebody can pick them up, or somebody can Uber. It's not like the old days, man. You just pick up Uber to take me home, or have one of your friends stop by, or somebody be a alternate driver, or I don't know. But I would recommend going, people. I mean, and they, if you're regulars, they will let you vote on the book of the week that they're going to read. So, so it's I don't know. It sounds interesting to me. I mean, the one they were reading was a genre that I probably wouldn't pick out myself, but I enjoyed the story. And I'm weird. I can listen to a lot of different things if I'm not reading it. Because like when I was listening to some of L. Ron Hubbard stuff, I was going through some of the westerns in there, and some of the other stuff he's written that I wouldn't consider fantasy or sci-fi. And so I guess I just like a lot of different stuff. I guess that's what it comes down to. And so I guess it's more about mood for me. Do I want to play Yippee-Ki Boy, or exploring the deep, or somewhere? I do really kind of like good stories about China, old stories about China, though. They could be written today, but something that something that just kind of takes you back a little ways. What's that?
Yeah, I just finished a book where I'm interviewing next week a gal named Magna Pant. She's the most award-winning author in India and a best-selling author there. And she wrote this book called The Man Who Lost India. And this is the first time I've actually read something with that and the Indian philosophy, the Indian religion, the whole thing of that culture and the Hindu religion. I wasn't fully tracking until I got to the very end. I went, oh my gosh, this is that whole, first thing, this is dystopian. And I realized, no, this is the cycle of existence from, the wheel of time cycle of life, type thing. And it was like, I'm looking forward to speaking with her. But then next week, I've also, because I love Westerns. So I'm interviewing a gal who I met 10, 12 years ago, who's now the president of Western Writers of America. I'm reading one of her books, and I'm interviewing her on Wednesday about Westerns and writing Westerns. She said there's a bit of a resurgence right now in Western writing. So I'm anxious to discuss that.
That'd be interesting. Jeffrey, an audio book on Logan Run. You mean from the TV movie back? Not the TV movie, the movie.
No, Logan's Run was written by, what's his name? He also wrote for.
I remember the movie. It was a little weird. I think I was like 12 when I seen it or something, but it was. It's one of the movies I can't.
George. It was written by William Nolan and George Clayton Johnson, and George Clayton Johnson died about, I don't know, like 10 years or so ago. But yeah, I used to see him every year at San Diego Comic-Con, and we would have dinner and stuff like that. And he was a big fan of Hubbard, so we talked a lot about Hubbard's writings. That was inspiration for him. But yeah,
I've never seen an audio version. Look, Johnny, is that your name? Yeah. If you've got an audio version, you can send it to iCarCox.net. But I've never heard of an audio version, and I don't even know if I'm going to listen to it because I can't quite remember if I actually liked the movie or not. I mean, I was a teenager, so, and there was, I'm not going to say what there was in that movie, but this is a good proper show. But I don't know. You send it over, I might listen to it. You never know. If I get bored one night or I'm out of audiobooks, I'm getting close to being out of audiobooks. I gotta get some new ones. Francisca, listen. We do take donations all the time for books. We are still replacing the library we lost at Katrina. It was about 4,400 books we lost for Katrina. And yeah, it's true. We did have a Linden library in the house. So we had books of all kinds. It started out as alien UFO books, and then it went to paranormal, and then it just bloomed out to every freaking kind of book you could think of. And my wife read a lot. No, I read some, but she read way more than I did. And then other people in my family read a lot too. So it was just to that point. So yeah, just write to me at iCarCox.net and I'll send you my email. And we're always looking for books. We're up to about, I think the library now is up to about 700. Yeah, far cry from where it used to be. It could be a little more than that, but yeah. When it gets to 2000, we'll open up the Linden Library again and start doing it. Well, we still do. I forgot what you call it. A little box in front of your house. We still do that. Yeah, there's several around here, and a friend of ours who lives in Pensacola, Florida, their neighborhood is a little what they call artiste community. They must be 30 of them little mini box libraries in front of their houses all throughout the neighborhood. So these are neighborhoods that really encourage people to read, especially where I live right now. They want you to read. Mississippi.
Yeah, those things, Mark. Those mini, the little boxes in neighborhoods on the streets.
I was in Ottawa last week, and I had some extra copies of some of my books. And my buddy and I just wandered up and down some streets, and we just kind of dropped a few off, signed them, slipped them in the book.
Yeah, it's fair, wasn't it?
That's cool.
Yeah, that's always cool. I actually had put a couple of the anthologies in there I had when I was going somewhere. I was actually going somewhere. Well, actually, I think I was going somewhere to mail some because I was in Pensacola for some other reason. I was down there for a lecture, and I put a couple in a couple of libraries when I was out there. I got nice responses from. I always leave one of my cards, one of the United Public Radio cards in them, so they'll call us. But it's nice. I mean, and, people appreciate it.
Yeah.
And these have 12 stories in them, so it's nice. And then we leave other stuff that we get, and as long as I don't leave any of my autograph copies, I'm all right. And, but if I get a lot of books in, sometimes I'll just go put them out there. I mean, because we know we're going to give away a lot of books, and it's nice to put them in the neighborhoods. And as long as I get one from my library, I'm fine. I put them in my library, and it works out real nice. But what is that, Christopher? Is Mark going to write horror for a movie? Okay,
well,
I'm not exactly.
Hollywood hasn't discovered me yet.
When I read the question, I was kind of like, okay, that really make much sense. But I'm sure if he can write a horror book and they make a movie, he'll be a real happy camper.
Yeah, I'd be very happy.
Yes.
Actually, a few friends of mine have had books turned into movies in the last few years. Several of them independent authors. Silo on the Apple Network was written by Hugh Howey, who is a judge of Writers of the Future, and Ado van Belkom, Canadian horror author, had a Silver Birch Award-winning story called Wolfpack, and that was turned. Paramount Plus did one, starring Sarah Michelle Gellar, Buffy, and let me see. I just finished watching Dark Matter by Blake Crouch, who's an independent author, and that was really great series. Jennifer Connelly, an actress you may be familiar with, she was one of the actors in that, and I just think it's always so fascinating. Oh, Johnny B. Truant, who's a science fiction fantasy author, he had a series called Fat Vampire, and the premise was they were joking around. He said, "Well, you're immortal and you never change. So what if I was like?" Because Dave is one of his buddies, and he's like he's larger, well nourished. And he said, well, what would happen if I turned into a vampire? I wouldn't be able to catch my prey because I'm so out of shape. I would be permanently that way. And so Reginald the Vampire, which Sci-Fi Channel did, and they're going into season 2 right now, was the premise. They called it Reginald the Vampire because Fat Vampire was probably something that would offend people. So Reginald the Vampire, which stars Peter Parker's best friend from the latest Spider-Man movies, Jacob Batalon. I'm pronouncing his name wrong, and he's the main character. And that was filmed up in Vancouver, in Canada, on the West Coast, just north of Seattle. And what a great show! Just really, because it's humorous because he is out of shape, but he's really smart. So his enhanced brain.
That's gotta be funny as hell.
Yeah, great show.
I'll have to check. I never thought Fat Vampire before. I really.
But Reginald the Vampire is what you would find, and that's based on Johnny B. Truant, who is an independent author. Great story, too.
Well, with all these Netflix and all this Prime and Max and Showtime, I mean, there's Apple TV, Samsung TV, Roku TV. I mean, everybody needs material.
Exactly.
And you can only share so much. You need, and it's like us. I mean, one thing about our network is every show on the network is original to the network.
Yeah.
It's we want original material because anybody can do a podcast network. It's not that hard. And I could have just taken shows from all over and just syndicated, made my life easier. But I prefer to have live shows on our network that belong to our network. It's better. The hosts work better together. It seems like a good way to go, and everybody advertises everybody else. So I think the smallest show we have on the network right now is doing 55,000 a week, and the largest show on the network does about 3.5 million a week. So it's in anywhere in between that. That's the best part. I mean, I'm serious. It can be anywhere in between that.
Yeah.
But
Wow.
it's a lot of fun, and it is. But that ain't how it was in the old days. I remember when I had shows that had 10 listeners. 12 listeners. I was like, ooh, I had 12 listeners this week. All right, man. And I remember the first time I broke 100. I was like, holy crap, I got 100 listeners. And then
But that's a
500.
lesson for writers too. And I've always told this to writers: if you're doing an event, right, you're going to do a reading, you're going to do a book signing, or a talk, or anything like that.
Yeah.
If there are 4 people in the audience, you still give them 100% because they're there for the experience, and you want to provide that. So you have 12 listeners.
True.
You have 12 listeners. They love you. Give them what they came for.
Yes.
I remember when Kevin Anderson used to come when he first started writing with Brian on the Dune stuff, and they'd come to Los Angeles to do signings, and he'd call me and say, "Can you help get some people there?" Because they go to these, because they weren't known at that time, and nobody would show up. So I'd get a couple vans loaded up with people to go to. This was at Romans in Pasadena, and so we'd fill up the store, and they'd come and do their signings there. And that's when I first met Brian Herbert, and that's when he became a judge way back when. But that's obviously not a problem anymore.
No.
And now book signings too
anymore,
is for big selling authors, they don't even do the signings anymore because now they've got other tools that helps them, with the big podcasts and online stuff. They're able to bypass that, so they can reach a broader audience now.
Yeah, it is. It doesn't matter what I'm doing, whether I'm doing radio, TV, if I'm lecturing. I always give everything. I don't care how many people are there, because I have lectured to crowds of like 20 people or 10 people. I have lectured to crowds of 1,000 and packed full. And then, of course, my Wednesday show does almost 3 million weekly listeners, and my Friday night does 3.3 million. So it's different. But like I said,
this show's up to. I mean, when we first started, it was like 49,000, 45,000 in December, and last week are 1.65 or something like that million listeners.
So
it's growing. So hopefully within the next couple of months we'll break 2 million.
Our biggest problem we have is we're spread out. Like I think right now this show, I want to say, is either 120 or 130 countries. So when you hear 1.6 million, that's a nice audience. But when you start diversifying across 130 countries, it could be better. But it wasn't like that. I mean, when I first got in radio, I was only broadcasting the U.S. I didn't even know how to get out I didn't even understand how to get out the country. But we're everywhere now. And UFO on the Cover actually goes out to every country in the world. It even goes out to, we have listeners in North Korea. We started out with 1, then 2, then 3, then 12. Now we have 15 listeners. I have no idea who they could be, where they are. I don't even know if I should be talking about it, to be honest with you. But other than that, Venezuela and Cuba, have big audiences all over Russia. Matter of fact, I was saying at the beginning of the show, I got a 2-hour interview on Pravda that they're doing with me on the Pravda Media Network over there in Russia. The reporter's out of Moscow. So we did 2 hours last Sunday. We're going to do 2 hours tomorrow, and then they're going to put it all together and put it on a show. It's I couldn't believe he goes, "You want to come to Russia?" I was like, "Wait, what?" He said, "I really was." He's like, "Do you want to come to Russia?" I said, "Not now." He said, "No, really?" He said, "Dude, I'm not coming anywhere around your country." I said, "Look, my passport will say America." I said, first thing they're going to do is, "Oh, he's an American. We're putting his ass in jail." No.
Yeah, he's obviously a spy.
I mean, I turned down a really good gig in China not to go right now. So I'd love to go. Don't get me wrong. I'd love to go to both countries, but not right now. It's just like, it just doesn't seem. Now, Canada, I go to anytime. I got to come up to anyway to harass my station manager. She keeps saying, "When are you going to come up here?" I said, "Sooner or later, I'm going to come up there just to harass you." I'll have to introduce you to Michelle one day. You'll love her. She's insane. John's met her a couple of times over the years. What's that, Marsha? No, we're getting ready to get out of here. What do you got? What do you got? Well, he said, we already kind of told you. I'll ask him again, but he already kind of told you about what genres he likes to write in and read and listen to. Okay, Mark, if you'd like to tell these people again about your
stuff I like to read, stuff I write.
They actually wanted to know what you read, what you like to read, and what you like to write is what they.
So I read almost every genre. I don't really read westerns. It's been a while since I've read westerns, but I read almost every genre, from contemporary fiction. I read romance, mysteries, different styles of mysteries, thrillers, horror, science fiction, fantasy. I love to change it up. I love to just experience new things. I tend to write a lot of horror. I tend to write urban fantasy, and I write true ghost stories. And then that's all under Mark Leslie, because nobody wants to ever spell or pronounce Lefebvre. I just did that to make life easier on readers and sometimes hosts. But again, as a judge, the person who works in the industry, a lot of people know me under Lefebvre, which is why I kept that name for for all of this.
Yeah, once you say it 3 or 4 times, it's not as bad. Look, when I was young, they used to butcher my name all the time, so I actually know how you feel. But
yeah,
it's what's that, Janine? Who? No, none of us are going to Europe anytime soon. I mean, I would take.
I'm going in October. I'm going to Frankfurt, Germany in October for the Frankfurt Book Fair, which is the biggest publishing show in the world.
Well, no, Mark. What do you mean? No, Mark's not in the United States. Mark's in Canada. Yes, he's in a different country. I know. Don't start. I know y'all think Canada's just states of America. Let's just not start that shit tonight. Just stop.
I'm in Hollywood. And it's definitely a different country.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Hollywood's definitely a different. You know what my favorite thing is about Hollywood is y'all walk everywhere. It's so great for your health. It's See, when we were young,
unless you smell all the people that are like the stinky marijuana, these guys.
That is rough with the pot. I ain't gonna lie. See, because the French Quarter, if you live in the city, in our city, you have to walk everywhere, so it's kind of nice. But he is right. So I'll tell you a little story. I'm not gonna give you all the names of all the players, but I will tell you there was a couple of the illustrator judges, famous ones, a couple of the winners. And Larry Elmore was what is the king of Dungeons and Dragons. Anyway, we left. We're going over to author service. So we left the hotel where we were staying, and it's a couple of blocks walk around to go to the author service. We're going over there to take pictures. So I said, well, I can get some good pictures of y'all. And so we walk. So we get 30 feet from the hotel, is like 8 guys in the corner smoking, and it's a big crowd you couldn't get through. So you're like getting just smoked out. So you get down about another 50 feet, and there's another big crowd. Everybody's got a blunt in their hand. Everybody's just chilling, smoking. So by the time we made the first corner, the whole group at least had a contact buzz. By the time we got to where we were going, everybody had a buzz. I mean, everybody did. It's impossible. It's just every group you see is smoking. Which I'm not hating on them because it's legal. So I'm not giving me trouble.
I'll do the hating then. I think it's disgusting, and I'm doing everything I can to try to get that repealed. There, I'm on record.
Yeah, so it was just, I mean, literally. And I smoked when I was young, so I was kind of like, damn, what are you guys smoking out here, man? It was just to say that we were trying to take pictures. Okay, these assholes would stop laughing. It was definitely different and interesting. No, actually, everybody were pretty big people. Larry probably the biggest out of it. Well, no, maybe the other ones were, but regardless, and then a couple of the winners there. I had the Dragon Corps with me. That's how we'll say it. Yes, that's what I was with, the Dragon Corps. But look, guys, y'all want to get high? That's fine. Look, can't you like stand off the street a little bit? Because I don't care if you get high. You know, I'm gonna catch a bus a lot of times. Well, I wasn't drinking on this trip, but still, or no, that trip I was. But it's really, I want to get high at my pace. I want to sit down and have a cocktail, maybe a glass of wine. I don't want to. I'm not hating. And last time I was when we was at the Roosevelt, in the broad daylight, just kids all over the place, and people just puff daddy it up all over. So I'm like, well, you know, maybe there should be certain hours you can get high in. in Hollywood. That might
Yeah,
work.
that's not gonna. No.
That might work.
But anyway, let's get back to where we were last doing.
Yes.
Well, we can talk about.
Well, we
books.
could write a book about how not to get high.
It was my fault for talking about an odd country in Hollywood, which immediately brings up all the whacked out craziness.
Really, it's funny to me. I've been there 4 times with y'all. Altogether, I've been to Hollywood about 11 times. And I shouldn't say this out loud. Let me knock on some wood. I've never had any problems there. Everybody's been extremely nice, extremely polite. All the horror stories I've ever heard about Hollywood, none of them came to pass. Even when I was down there in the service, and this goes back 44 years, even then it wasn't. I didn't have any problems. Of course, back then you probably wouldn't want to mess with me, but still, it's been nice and pleasant. And last time, or time before last, I was hanging out with an Aussie and 2 guys from the UK, and we were all drunk walking around LA like we belonged there or something. It was too much. I will tell y'all this. Every time somebody heard we were not from LA and they found out where we were from, because we're all from different places, the UK, New Orleans, and Australia, everybody wanted to buy us drinks. Everybody. It didn't matter where we were. Let me buy you a drink. Let me buy you a drink. Let me buy you a drink. The guy I'm standing there getting a hot dog from some guy in the street because I was starving. He said, "Where are you from?" I'm like, "Oh, no, man, come on, I'll comp your hot dog." Really? It was too much. Anyway, I'm not telling you to go or not to go to Hollywood. I'll just leave it up to y'all. John lives there, so where he works there.
Yeah, that's why I'm speaking from experience.
Yes, he's there a lot. I'll tell you, I'll give you the same advice I tell you when you come to New Orleans. Travel in a group. I always tell anybody, if you don't know a local and you come to New Orleans, travel in a group. If you know a local in New Orleans, you're fine. Yeah, it's just, but well, I usually pick cities, and fortunately I do radio, so I know people in a lot of cities. I usually pick cities where I know people. So like if I was in Mark City, I'd give him a call. Hey, Mark, what's good around here? What's good places to eat? Where you go hang out? Where's it safe? Where it's not safe? Stuff like that. If I was up by Michelle, I'd do the same thing. If I was in Europe or anywhere, I'd call one of my friends and say, I'd call him before I was going, hey, where should I be? Where should I not be? They know, so you get on these tourist trips, which is fine, but the locals really know where the good stuff is. I'm not talking about alcohol people. I'm talking about the good things to see and visit and stuff. But we got to go. Mark, do you want to get any parting words before we get out of here?
No. It's been a great chat with you guys. Thanks for having me on.
John, anything left before we hit the road?
Well, again, you've got 1.5 days, not even yet, to be able to get your stories or your art entered for Writers of the Future. The quarter is ending on the 30th of June at midnight, so be sure to get your stories in. And if you've not read it, Writers of the Future Volume 40 is released in the U.S. and Canada last month, and it releases next week in UK, Australia, New Zealand, and South Africa. So it's amazing work. And Judge Mark Leslie Lefebvre, our newest writer's judge. So we're so happy that he's on board with us right now. And we look forward to many more years in the future with him helping out as we continue to grow this contest.
Hey, Colleen, and yes, Farrah Fawcett was in that movie. Guys and girls, how about some near now sci-fi? Okay. I'm just making requests. That's all I'm doing. I'm allowed to make requests. Come on, people. Anyway, we got to play a promo. We're out of here. I hope everybody enjoyed the show. Of course, like I always say, any moans, groans, bitches, or complaints, please direct them to Michelle DeRoche, and then we'll just have to see what she says.
Talk to you later, Mark.
All right, everybody. It's time for you to get out and nominate your favorite podcasts. There's a show I want you to consider for the People's Choice Podcast Awards. Writers and Illustrators of the Future podcast. In 3 categories: education, storyteller and drama, and arts. For 5 years and with over 280 weekly episodes and 64 million plus downloads, the Writers and Illustrators of the Future podcast has provided advice and tips from international best-selling authors, world-class artists, contest judges and winners, and industry professionals. It is based on the world-famous Writers of the Future contest created in 1983 by L. Ron Hubbard to help the aspiring writer and artist no matter their age, race, ethnicity, or gender. It is dedicated to the future of storytelling and art by showing that it is never too late to start, and those who make it are those who never give up. We are all busy, but I'd be so grateful if you could take a moment and vote now. Go to podcastawards.com to nominate the Writers and Illustrators of the Future podcast in any or all 3 of the categories: education, storyteller drama, or art. News on the flip side. It's time for you to get out and nominate your favorite podcast. There's an amazing show I want you to consider for the People's Choice Podcast Awards. The News on the Flip Side, in the category of politics and news. News on the Flip Side is a much different news and political program, which is not deemed as opinion news. Listen as anchor host Joe Montaldo brings you just the facts from trusted sources, which will allow you, the people, to make up your own minds on the various stories being reported on. Go to podcastawards.com to nominate the News on the Flip Side in the category of news and politics. That's podcastawards.com. Please take a moment and vote now.